Hello, this is Dorgan Kishu, Paladin and Dragon Rider. Thanks for checking out Dragon Riders Episode 3, the show about we interview dungeon masters and players and content creators and product creators of Dungeons and Dragons. Sometimes we talk about other RPGs. This is my co-host Kate. She is a player and dungeon master and D&D story writer. And my guest today is Eric. I don't usually give out last names, but you're welcome to. But this is Eric. I've known him when I originally returned to D&D, because I played when I was younger, but I returned to D&D in 2017. I started getting onto my D&D Twitter account, and Eric's been the person I probably have interacted with the most, and/or he's been one of my greatest supporters. And then when I started to work on an actual D&D module, he actually gave me a lot of feedback, and several characters and places within my Frost Realm module were Eric's suggestions. No pressure. But he's also given me, asked for some help on my current HighCon, my second module that I'm working on. I got some help already from him with that too, because names aren't always my thing. And so I reach out to people that are good at it. Eric, why don't you talk a little bit about you in regards to Dungeons and Dragons?
Okay. I mostly play, but every now and then I'll run a game. Let's see. Started when I was 11, back in 1985.
Nice.
One summer with my cousins in Maine, and then actually didn't play again for quite a while because most of my friends had very religious parents. So it was one of those things I kind of didn't put out there. Then in high school, I met another group of friends who were all into D&D, and that's when I really started playing pretty much full time.
When was that again? I'm sorry.
Back in high school.
Oh, in high school. Okay, good. So, go ahead.
So yeah, ever since high school, I've had
That's a long time.
a couple different groups that I've been playing with, but one group, like from high school on, I've been playing with. So.
Do you still play with them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh wow! So is that
I've got a small group
or
of friends.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
They're all local. Yeah, for the most part, that's what I've done.
Wow,
Yeah.
You've been playing the same group since high school.
Yeah, more or less. We've had a couple people come in and out. A couple groups kind of form from a larger pool of friends. So I've had two main groups of friends that I've role played with over the years.
Yeah, I played like a group when I was a teenager, a group in my late 20s. Then it was like World of Warcraft in my 30s, and then but then in my 40s I got back into Dungeons and Dragons. I really like the 5e system. So you said you do dungeon. Do you have a preference over? I know you said you're mostly a player, but do you have a preference over player or dungeon master?
I'm much more comfortable as a player. Yeah.
And then but you do dungeon master as well.
Yeah. When I first started playing, it was second edition, and I played for a while with the group of friends I was playing with, and then I had a chance to do like a little one shot, which was pretty fun. And then I didn't really run anything for a long time, and then played Amber, which is a diceless role playing game based on a series of novels by Roger Zelazny, and did that campaign with a couple friends, and finally decided to do my own campaign. So that was kind of the first big thing I ever ran, was an Amber campaign.
Oh, that's cool. How did you like running your first kind of bigger campaign?
I loved it. With Amber, it was a lot easier because there weren't as many rules. It was a lot less rules based. So it was more about the story and drawing from different things like movies and books that I'd read. So it was a lot easier for me to do with that respect.
Yeah, I bought well, originally I was a pretty shy kid in high school, and I always wanted to play and couldn't find anybody. Anybody I did come across that played, I've mentioned this before, it was kind of like a lot of like people battling over the rules and ate up 1/3 of the time. It's so hard to get a group together. I was just like, oh my God, I don't want to just talk about rules. But after a while, I realized the only way I'm ever going to play D&D is if I run it. I wasn't a big reader, so I bought the basic set, the red box, and then I grew into the blue set. And then I had a friend that gave up D&D, and he gave me all his Advanced Dungeons and Dragon books. So I have all these old ones from him, the ones that I post on Twitter sometimes. And so I started to slowly incorporate some of the AD&D rules, mainly story was a big part of me. And I like to have the rules where there's enough rules where it feels like you can die. It feels like it's realistic. And I like to have enough structure where people feel that. And but other than that, I'm not like giant. Now 5e, I think the rules are awesome. I was really impressed with them. It was easy to do that. But enough about me.
What do you think is the draw to D&D? Like, why do you think that you are drawn to it, or that you have like? Because I know for me, since I've kind of gotten into it, I feel really like, I mean, it sort of took me over in a way. Like, I can't not have D&D in my life now. So why do you think that is? Like, what is it about D&D that is, that kind of captures people and kind of doesn't let them escape?
Right.
Sure.
No, I get that. For me, as a kid, I was kind of always into fantasy. Like The Hobbit was a huge thing. My dad had this big Hobbit picture book that I fell in love with, and then there was the animated special that I watched on TV. And I've always liked the fantasy genre. And then I feel like I'm a pretty creative person. And if I wasn't, I kind of consider myself a little bit introverted. So if I wasn't so introverted, I think I might have gotten into theater or acting. And I think there's all those aspects of creativity and expression and acting that you can find in D&D. So that's a big draw for me. Just all of it.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because there's just so much to it. There really is. There's so many different like levels to what you're doing, because there is the acting aspect to it, the role playing, the storytelling, the fantasy aspect, but there is also like a gameplay,
Right.
So like there are some people who, even if they don't give a crap about all that, they just like want to create a character that is like the best character, like has the best feats, has the best spells, like
Right.
and I think that there's like a strategic thing that in with your mind that kind of can give you something to hold on to as well. So I just think there's a lot of different levels. Yeah, there's just a point I had to make. I had another point, but I forgot. But yeah.
No, I think you're right. I think there's a lot of different aspects that different people can latch onto and find interesting and really play with. But I like all of that. Some to a greater degree than others. But yeah, I like all of that.
Yeah, and I know in the campaign that you're doing with me, you are playing a bard. Is that the preferred class you like to play, or are there just any? Do you just like to play any class, or is it just kind of, just asking?
Yeah. No, I've been trying to branch out. So I started playing a bard in my other game, like right before I started playing with you guys. So I just kind of carried that over because it's a class that I hadn't played until then. Usually I was playing fighters. I kind of identify with that class more, but I like rogues. I like one of the earlier characters I played was a wild mage, which was a lot of fun. But fighters are usually what I focus on. But playing the bard has been a lot of fun too.
It's funny you said that you were kind of an introvert. I was extreme introvert when I was in high school. I didn't talk. The only person I really talked to was my brother, who was a grade lower, but I mostly talked to him at home. So I was kind of like watching people more than not stalking, just watching.
Right.
No, but I was more of an introvert. It's funny you also said about the theater thing, because what happened is my brother wanted to be a professional actor, and he actually got into a community theater group and talked me into joining it when I was a teenager, which is like the opposite of what I would ever do. But it was such a slow process. It was Shakespeare and shit, and I would play really little roles. But I was in that group for 3 years, and then that kind of helped me. Even though I was an introvert, it kind of opened me up. So I'm kind of like a blend now. I'm able to I fell in love with that, and I theater is awesome, but I am not one of those theater guys that's just like that's my brother. He's we just did a family Christmas Carol Zoom a night or two ago, and I wanted him to be Scrooge no matter what, because I'll just play I'll roll little parts, I'll do some narrating, but so I totally relate with that. Talking on the character thing, I haven't been a player much. I mostly play paladins, and it's funny because I finally tried a fighter, which is not, and he got killed, and this and that happened. It's actually in the same campaign with you guys, and then he got not resurrected, he got reincarnated, And bottom line is he ended up now he's taken a level of paladin, so I'm kind of back where I normally am. So, but I haven't branched out a lot myself, but there's so many that I would love to do. Most of my favorites are like NPC characters, like rangers. I love rangers and barbarians and paladins, but I've not played any of those as a player, though.
Yeah, I definitely would like to try all the classes at some point. There's a handful that I haven't done yet. So
have you been a warlock? Oh my gosh.
Man,
that's no, I'm not done warlock yet.
I think you like talk about a class you can't leave. After playing a warlock for a few years, I'm like, I don't know how many I've never not play a warlock. They are just like, they're so freaking awesome. I'm just telling you. I think they're so underrated, and it's like, it's really kind of hard to play them because you have 2 spell slots or whatever, and we really have to manage stuff in a different way. But it's also like, it's so much character based and
Right.
like, and I was talking about this in the other interview. It's like very power based, because basically you're getting power from this being, and you're kind of having to do stuff to get it, but you're kind of getting the power, and it's sort of like a power dynamic that's really kind of obvious. And it's not as obvious in the other magic classes, like with clerics, because they're basically just like admitting that they're lesser than this like being. But
Right.
there's always like this kind of, is the warlock ever going to fight their patron, or is there ever going to be a thing where they
Especially
battle,
as you gain
or
power.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's it really is cool to play a warlock, but it does take a long time to become like to a point where you are actually kind of as powerful as other classes. I think for the most part, I think if you're like a 3rd level warlock, you're not going to be maybe as powerful as like other magic, like a wizard or whatever, but that's where a dungeon master would have to make it more about story for the warlock a little bit.
Right.
But yeah. And yeah, Eldritch Blast, man.
Yeah, cantrips are very important.
Yeah, everybody seems to be big on the Eldritch Blast. Yeah, the patron duality there, the link between the patron and the character sounds really interesting. It also seems like something that a DM could really turn against you pretty easily, or just expand upon story-wise. So that's pretty cool.
It is really cool. And sorry, I don't know. I keep having like half thoughts that aren't fully complete, and I'm like, they just don't. Yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, and I've been running her because I ran it. Really only ran 3 campaigns. I've DM'd for other people and different things for that and that first, but I've 3 official campaigns, and one of my teens, one of my late 20s, and then this one I ran for her for a few years, and it's 1 player. She's a warlock. I run literally 9 characters in her group, so I'm playing all kinds of classes, and I'm a little crazy because I love doing all that, but sometimes I think it's late at night, and I've said this before, I can't quite do the voices. It starts to.
When you're a dungeon master, what is like your process for coming up with the story, or coming up with what the characters are going to encounter? Do you have like a whole kind of story in mind, or are you relating to something you've seen maybe on the screen or in a book, or is it completely just out of your mind? And do you have like a structure to it, or is it just kind of you create it on the spot? Like, because I think that it's interesting how different people DM.
Right. Yeah, for sure. The first time I decided to really run seriously with that Amber campaign, I think I had just like a tiny concept of what I wanted to do. And for that campaign, I drew from a lot of different movies and different books, little pieces, bits and pieces that I had read or seen to kind of put something together. So it was fun. I don't know that story-wise, it was like the greatest campaign ever. And in fact, the ending was horrible. I can admit that outright. The ending was not good because I really didn't have like a framework of what I was starting from and to where I was going. So by the end of it, it was just, I think I was just basically ready to be done running. So that the ending was not that great, which I think can happen to a lot of, as far as endings, I think that's probably the hardest thing to do for a campaign, to get a good ending. So yeah, I like to also, I'm not opposed to using modules. In fact, I find that helps me if I use a module to help tell a story or to be part of a bigger story. That usually helps me, especially lately. I've just had a hard time sitting down and writing out things or coming up with a full story, which I seem to have an easier time to do during high school and college. I just had more free time, and I don't know, I was just better at it then. So I've got the one I'm running now, I've got a couple different modules that I'm piecing together in this larger story that I've come up with. And I still need to work on the details for that, even though we just started running that. We're in one of the modules now, so I've got a little bit of time to figure out some of the details that I want to add to it.
Yeah, it's
Very cool.
funny. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was talking with one of my friends once about this, and he was talking about how every DM that is good, at least, in some way railroads. And I'm like, no, that's not true at all. And he's like, no, you, like, every good DM has to railroad. They just have to make every other option not be appealing, and kind of like gear everything towards the one option, but not make it obvious. And I'm like, really, that's how you DM? I'm like, oh God. But yeah, I mean, for me, DMing has been such a learning process, obviously, because you're in my company, so you know. But do you agree with that like it is sort of, when people talk about railroading, it sort of is or isn't? Or I know for sure, I mean, maybe not with James, because I don't think James railroads my character at all, because I just do whatever the hell I want, honest to God, and he has to deal with it, kind of thing. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that? I find it interesting.
Yeah, I think that's probably a personal thing. I mean, I think the biggest thing for a DM to be good is just to be, well, you have to kind of be able to make up a story or parts of a story as you're going along, to react to how your players are doing things or what they decide to do. As far as the cooperative storytelling, I mean, I don't think that was a huge thing when I first started running, especially when you're doing modules. It is kind of railroading. And you know, if you're just starting out and that's the first thing you've done, I think that can be really fulfilling. Later on, as you play more, I think you want more out of a game. So I can see where railroading can be a tool that you can use to get from point A to point B. But depending on what game you're running and how open the world is, and whether or not you've really determined what you want to do or what the story is going to be, you can have all kinds of things happen. So a lot of that, if you have players who like to get into the storytelling aspect, who are really involved in their characters and their backgrounds, sometimes that helps write a story, you know, that you didn't know you were going to tell. So I just think as long as you use it as a tool and it's not like a set in stone way of running, I think, you know, railroad here or there isn't too bad, but it really depends on what everybody wants out of their campaign.
Yeah. It's funny because a couple things that we were talking about was, first of all, I've never ended a campaign. So I've never had to deal with that aspect, because I've had 3 campaigns. The first 2 got to like level 8. She's at level 26. I don't know that the ending is anywhere in sight. I just keep trying, things getting bigger, you know, it's gone, you know, we dealt with archdevils, we dealt with demon lords, now we're in gods, but it's not just that. But yeah, I think for me, I mostly I tend to create maps, so I have a location for all this stuff to happen. Maybe create some random wandering monster charts. Maybe a lot of my stories, I create characters, and then there's just endless Forgotten Realm stuff on there. I pull certain created places or characters from that, and it's just so. Yeah, I never know what she's going to do. And that's, sometimes I have to take a moment to read up real quick, because it's just like, whoa. Or, and she's gotten in some really dangerous, bad situations because of it, but she's chaotic neutral. I mean, I'm not saying, I don't even know how people are with alignment these days, but she's definitely chaotic, and goes between neutral and good, I would say. But yeah, it's she definitely throws it, but that's me. I know the other thing I was going to say is, even though I wrote my first module last November, 2019, I've never actually used a module. I'm so homebrew and I create so much stuff. I own modules. They're all here. They're all brand new, and I don't even like them sitting here. I almost want to sell them or give them away just so that they're used, because because D&D makes some really great ones, but I just don't. And I would love to be a player in them too. So anyway, but when I did Frost Realm, I tried to write a module that I would want to be in. I guess people can call it kind of old school dungeon crawl, some rich characters, some interesting locations, and the artist I got, he did the art, but I couldn't afford to do the guide. I couldn't afford to pay a person to do the maps I was going to do. So I ended up asking my artist if he would do my maps. I ended up having to draw as good copies as I could, and then he just basically digitalized them and made them a little more artistic. But everybody's different though. But it is funny. I've never had the constraints of a module. People talk about one shots, and I used to think that meant one night session, but now I'm finding out one shots can be 5 sessions, I guess. I mean, I didn't even realize that, because I was like, I don't know if I could design something that's exactly one session. I'm a campaign guy, but 5 sessions makes it a little better. Like if I Frost Realm might be a 5 session thing, so I guess you could almost call that a one shot. But yeah, that's interesting. Like I said, I love the stuff that's out there. I just wish I had and I'm still not really a big reader, so I look at these things and I got this Kobold Press one, and it's about this enchanted forest, and it's so badass looking, but I would have to really absorb it and become the forest, and that's like, and they're like and it's badass, but I may end up just giving it away or selling it because I want someone else to actually use it. But I'm also a writer, and I've been writing fantasy for a long time, so I like to create the worlds, create the characters. Kate's also a writer. I thought she'd be a good DM. As it turns out, I think she's a really good DM.
He's like, this is recorded, so I probably have to say yes. I would say that for a new DM, I'm okay, I haven't decided to stop. So, that's the only way you fail is if you stop. So just kind of trying to keep going. It's fun though. It's definitely, I don't know. I know for me, the whole campaign you guys are in started because I had one little idea. I'm like, that would be an awesome campaign. And then when I started DMing, I'm like, it's not just an idea that you go off of when you're a dungeon master. Like literally the little idea lasted like half a session or something. And then it's just like, okay, so I have to figure out what else is going on, and then it just sort of became chaotic, and now it's like maybe it's gonna all come together, possibly all the different things, that I need to not panic create. I've noticed that's what I do. Is I don't know what's going on, so I'm like, okay, we're just gonna start something else because I don't know what the heck is happening. But no, it's really cool. It definitely is like a brainstorm and makes you reflect on yourself. When you're a dungeon master, you're literally controlling it. So not really. You're not controlling it. But you are the rule book or whatever, the space.
The sky.
And so yeah, so you sort of have to know what's happening in a way. You sort of have to, and you have to kind of know yourself in a way. I think that's another thing that D&D does as a player and a dungeon master, is it helps you get in tune with yourself in a way that therapy can. I know I keep talking about this every single freaking thing, every single time we get the interview show, whatever. But it is definitely a therapy type thing. You just wow, this is the way I create, or this is what I think about, or this is what I'm drawn to, or so you just know what I'm saying.
I do. Yeah, I think more than ever, this year, just gaming in general has been very therapeutic. It's necessary for me to just escape into some other world and not deal with all the things that are going on in the real world for a few hours at least. And I know my friends that I game with, we haven't gamed as much as we would have liked. And I know even my wife and my son, who I just started running for, are the same way. They want it. They want this little bit of escapism. They want to do something that's totally different than what they've been dealing with in the real world. So I think just from that perspective, it's really therapeutic.
It's interesting with the escapism thing. I've mentioned this before as well, that for me, playing D&D and playing World of Warcraft was never an escape thing. I just fell into the place where I could be creative and have things be an extension of myself,
Right.
But with COVID, it finally hit a point where I was just like, I don't want to. I was like, I really wanted to play. I was like, it was definitely like, I would rather be facing dragons and zombies and maybe dying than being in the real world right now. So I definitely have come to have a huge appreciation for the escapism aspect.
Yeah.
What a lot of people do it for, I think.
One of my friends, she posted a thing about how she feels that as like a humanity, I guess, we are like too focused on like stories. Like we're too focused on stories that aren't in like humanity, or like we watch a lot of movies or watch TV or read books, or and that we are kind of not like being in the present, and we sort of like take our minds off it, and we're not working on this world, I guess. And that's what she's trying to say. And for me, like I was like, wow, no, she's so wrong. Like to me, I'm like, those types of things, like stories and books, stories that we watch on the TV, those like inform our humanity so much. I mean, it's not a mistake that we're so drawn to stories as a way of coming together. So many people can come together because of stories, and we've been telling stories for a long time. Like
Cave
people told stories, and so stories, it really isn't the problem. And I think people can get like, I don't know, think of escapism as a negative thing, or think of certain gaming or as a waste of time, or you're not like making something of yourself. But to me, it's amazing. To me, it's amazing because it is a reflection of humanity, and it is actually like you observing yourself, like I said before, and observing. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but
Yeah. Well, it's I mean, in particular, like my role playing games, you get an opportunity to be a certain way. Maybe you'll be braver. Maybe you'll be magic. It actually gives you an opportunity to expand your mind. And then like books and movies, yeah, it's a way that we actually, it's important to have ways that we can all connect, because it's hard sometimes to connect with people, especially these days. Like everybody's on their phone and everything. I think it's even harder, and this pandemic's kind of forced everybody to connect more. I think you're forced to be home with your wife more, or you're forced to be around your kids, or you're forced to be around, or you're away from your family, so you appreciate them more. And it's like there's all this stuff. And I think, yeah, okay, some people say, oh God, wow, how did I stay married to this person? And they bail on it. But then other people go, what, I just, I've worked so hard, but I forgot what I'm working for, which is, like, oh, I met this great girl, and now I'm going to build a life, and and then you end up not kind of neglecting certain aspects of that because of, of what you're trying to create up here. But that it's a little hard to explain the subject that you're talking about, but stories definitely, I think, are a way that we can all relate and connect. When we all watch, or a bunch of us watch Rudolph, I used to like only watching like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer or whatever when it was live, because I knew there's so many other people watching it at the same moment, or the Oscars or whatever. It's like this thing where we know that we're all connected at that moment. So even sporting events is on a regular basis. I mean, it's a way for people to connect. Certain things I was like, I don't want to watch the VHS or DVD. It's not the same, and now cable's kind of disintegrating. But
I was even more talking about not even like connecting like at the same time, but
yeah,
how many people connected with Game of Thrones, and I, like as a moral person, like there were certain aspects of Game of Thrones that I didn't necessarily agree with or whatever, not like in the show, like outside of it, but I'm not going to go into that. But it gave people some like characters you could relate to. Like when you watch something and you relate to a character, it helps you see yourself better, and it helps you become more comfortable in who you are when you see that person on television or you see it around. So that was what I was trying to say. But yeah, sometimes I'm bad at describing things, so I apologize. There's
I
a
actually have a hard time describing this subject because I know for a fact that all these people that read Lord of the Rings, it enriches their whole existence.
yeah. I guess I was just trying to talk about maybe like the stereotype of people who game, or the stereotype of people who watch maybe movies a lot or do something like that, as not doing something productive, because I think it's completely different. I think it is very productive, even if mainstream society doesn't say so. I think it definitely is informing our humanity in some way, and it's not just like escapism. I think there is an aspect that can be escapism, where you're just literally trying to leave this this world because it's painful. But there's another aspect where you're literally relating to this, almost like, you're creating to a story, or you're relating to a story that is like beyond this world. And to me, that's really deep and incredible. I know this is just the way I talk, so I'm sorry about the
No,
whatever.
yeah, no, I agree. The storytelling has so many aspects to it. Just the entertainment purposes of storytelling, or to try and tell a parable, or to make some type of morality play, that just to make you focus on good versus evil, or just the way you live your life. And I think that all that can be found in storytelling. And obviously it's something that we've done as humans for a long time. It kind of defines our humanity. It helps us relate to each other, help us to share experiences and to learn and to grow. I think all of that's, can be important. The escapism aspect, I think you're right. It can be taken in a negative context, and it can be if that's what you turn to, as opposed to facing reality or working on yourself in reality. As long as you have those boundaries between what is real and what's not real, or this is just something I do for fun, all kinds of things can be taken to extremes. Any hobby can be negative if you put too much focus on it. So I think it's just what it does for you, and like you say, can help you to grow. Can you reflect on yourself because of whatever you're doing, because of whatever story you gain? Sometimes it helps you to see things from a different perspective, which is always good, I think. So it's a big subject. I think it's one of those things that you can find that in a number of different areas in life, but it's definitely there.
Yeah. Also, so I know that you and your wife make his wife is also in our group. But you guys make dice bags, and I know because I got a couple from you. I went to have mine with me, but I will probably post it out there again. But the one I chose was for my Dungeon Master dice, because I have dice for Dungeon Master and I have dice for specific characters. That's a big thing of Dungeon Master. Yeah, and I have a big thing of Dungeon Master dice that has and I chose this one for you. It was just one of your ones that was already I think designed. I didn't have you custom design. It was black, and it has gold trim, and it has the D&D end sign, the little dragon, and so that I love. But then you chose this amazing gold black interior fabric. I wish I had brought it, but it's beautiful. And but I've loved your bag. And then I had you custom design one for her because she likes pink and black as colors, and you chose the different fabrics and everything. But how did that all begin? I mean, I know D&D is blown up. I know that, and maybe that. I don't know how long you guys have been actually making your bags, but maybe you can tell me a little bit all about it.
Boy, I'm trying to think of when exactly. It was when I started running my Amber campaign. Actually started because the guy who was running it at the time, I think just because of personal reasons, kind of stopped running. And we had gotten to a point where I was like, well, everybody's really into this. We wanted to keep going. And I was basically the only one who was going to pick it up. So I picked up his storyline and kind of turned it into my own. Yeah. And I think when we kicked that off, we decided, it might have been the second part of that story, we decided to do something for everybody in the group. So we made dice bags for them, which was the first time we made dice bags. And then they turned out better than we expected. We used a pattern that we had found and kind of adjusted it a bit. And everybody loved them, and they've held up really well. And then Michelle's always been very crafty. She's always been into sewing. and she decided she was going to do an Etsy store, and the dice bags seemed like a real easy thing to do. Plus, when we got onto Twitter, I found this D&D community, which I thought was great. I mean, there's so many people who are interested in D&D or just role playing in general, not just D&D, but it's a pretty sizable community, and there's so many creative people in this community. It was pretty amazing to see that. Like I said, I'd had a kind of a local group of friends who I'd played with. I've never really been to a big convention. I've done a couple little game days at different gaming stores here and there, but I've never been to a big convention. So I haven't been around that many people involved in role playing. And then when I got onto Twitter, people were just everywhere. You could interact with them. You could see what they were doing. So that was pretty cool. And then Michelle decided to do an Etsy store, and that was one of those things we knew we could do, and it probably generate some interest, and we could put it on Twitter, and people might be interested in it. So that's kind of how that came about. I'd always been kind of into the visual side of D&D, as far as maps and drawings and minis and using props, which I've done while I run. And so that was kind of what the dice specs came out of, because I've always done like little letters and scroll cases and that kind of thing for the campaigns that I run. So it was kind of an extension of that, and then it was something that she liked to do as far as sewing and crafting. So it just kind of happened naturally.
How many years back was that again? I missed it. You said.
I should have looked this up before we did this.
No, I don't need an exact.
I want to say it was probably around 2000 when we first made the dice bags. Wow. But then it was a couple years after that we decided to do the Etsy store. So I think the Etsy store has been around for a few years now. But yeah, and all those dice bags are still holding up today. So we're pretty sure that the quality as far as the
workmanship. What is it, a canvas or something? It feels like it's some kind of canvas.
The dice bags you have are a slightly different or thicker material. Most of what we use is kind of a standard cotton-based material. It just depends on the fabric, whether or not it has a print on it. But most of the fabric, some of them are fat quarters, which are just little cuts of fabric, and usually aren't as thick. But it just depends. Yeah.
Real quick, well, because something you mentioned, when did you join the D&D Twitter community?
I think was it two, maybe 3 years ago. It wasn't that long ago.
Oh, so you right around the time
2017. I think 2017 was when I first got on.
Same year as me. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's right. Like that was like D&D was really blowing up. Obviously, Critical Role was really blowing up. I think they started in 2015, but that's just part of it. But it just seemed like it and the company and everything was just, and that sounds like we both walked into this wave that was going. I almost feel, is your experience, okay, so I was away, in end of 2017, I actually stepped away for different reasons, and I just wasn't on Twitter for like over a year. Nothing to do with Twitter though, and I came back because I missed the community and et cetera. Oh shit, I totally forgot what I was going to ask. Oh, I know what I was going to ask. When I first got on in 2017, and I didn't want to dive right into dungeon mastering. I wanted to learn the rules first. I noticed that Critical was using 5e, and I just heard a lot about 5e. And I had a friend asked if he would run one, and he ran it. I was a player. And then I started making vlogs. I made vlogs where I talked about dungeon mastering and world building on my vlogs. And then I got the community involved, and I got a lot of feedback and a lot of like polls and just names or suggestions or input. And it was like really fun. I wasn't planning on publishing. And then somebody asked me if I was going to publish this module I was creating on. Does it seem different to you now? I know the community is great, but I almost feel like people were a little more interactive in a certain way. And now it feels like everyone is creating something. Everyone is building something. Most, at least, maybe it's just the people I follow, that it's mostly just people. They're players, but they also either have modules, or they have this, or they have that, or they have podcasts, or they have streams. And that's fine. And that's part of the reason why I created the show is I actually want somewhere rather than just a tweet for players and dungeon masters and creators to talk about their gameplay and or the things they make, as opposed to just Twitter. I just think it's two-dimensional. So that's why I created the show. So I want to actually give it another platform for it. But at the same time, also the whole feel like it's changed. I feel like there's less. I feel like it would be harder for me to get input from people. Opinions are one thing, but I mean, like, actual input. I feel like
Right.
it's been harder to get that from the community now, and I just feel like it's because it's just piles of creators, and they don't really want to focus on other people's creations. Maybe, I don't know. But how do you feel about from like in a 3-year period, how it's changed or hasn't changed?
Yeah, no, it's definitely changed, but I don't know. I think there's a couple different reasons for that. Because I've seen different people who have been following on that the whole time who've gone from just kind of being a fan of this or into it to just starting to write their own, make their own products and that kind of thing. Getting into podcasts, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it has to do with the algorithm. I think they have changed the algorithm for Twitter a couple different times, and it really seems like it's so much harder to get your tweet, whatever you're putting out there, noticed and get the interaction. I really feel like that's a big part of it, especially because I follow a lot of artists outside of just role playing. I follow a lot of artists, and I know when I first got on, it seemed like I got a lot more interaction, and I've seen artists say the same thing. So I think a lot of it has to do with the algorithm. Plus, I've started following more people. I mean, the number of people I've followed has grown, and the number of people following me has grown. So the more and more people you follow, it's harder to keep track of the ones that you usually interact with. So I think all of those things kind of add to that. But yeah, it's definitely not quite the same as when I first started.
Yeah, because it's interesting you mentioned that algorithm thing. When in 2011, I wanted to actually get in the habit of writing. I heard it's good to get in the habit of writing by writing every day or whatever. So I gave myself 1,000-word a day goal. It wasn't a lot. And for the next year and a half, I just wrote in this writing blog. And there was this area where people could talk in a forum, and there was this thing, and I had all these people that would follow, and the views are really high and all this. I don't know, WordPress did something. They got rid of the forum because they didn't have people that could moderate it or whatever their reason was. And all of a sudden, it's like a change, like that completely changed from this thing where it was this huge WordPress community where writers followed writers, and we supported each other, and we got to meet people in the forums, and then they'd come follow your thing because you'd mentioned in the forum. The forum went away, and all of a sudden, it was like views went, and it was just like this whole other thing. And I don't know if it's an algorithm thing because I'm not super fluent on what algorithm, how that all works, but it's really sad. If I experienced that. Now I think I did experience that in WordPress where the community went away. And it was this amazing community, and it was just became where everybody's just doing their own thing, and maybe someone will click like, and it was no community. And then the D&D thing, there is still a community, but it absolutely is different now. That, like I said, I feel like if I did the same tweets that I did when I was doing Rhealm and trying to get feedback from people, and I got tons of feedback, like I don't feel I would get near the feedback on like HighCon or whatever. So I'm like more on my own, which is fine. But I really enjoyed the community aspect, and it's kind of shifted. Maybe it is the algorithm.
The thing, one thing too, is that it's just this world is a lot more, even in the span of like 3 years. I mean, and it's actually, you were talking about 2017. I mean, it's 2020 now, and it's like this stuff is so fast paced and changes so much. Within a day now we have fleets on Twitter. And things change, and there's more this and that, and everyone's competing to have this the best social media platform, and it's really fast paced, and there's a lot. I mean, if you go on Instagram, and it's the same with Instagram too. Like, I mean, I was hardly on Instagram in the past, but I've noticed that I could do like the worst posts, and I would get like 43 likes or something, and then now I do like try to do a really beautiful post or whatever, and it's like 3 likes or something,
absolutely.
So I think it's just the sheer volume of people online too, is that it's sort of like there's a lot of noise now. They're like in every aspect, not just in the D&D community, but like in any aspect. And so in some ways it's good because there's just so much out there, and there's a lot of content, and it's bigger, and there's a lot of people you can meet and stuff. But it is also like, if you are a creator, it is a lot harder to be noticed, or a lot harder to have your stuff be looked at, because you're kind of having to go against like everyone else, and you're somewhat not competing with everyone else, but it is like very not competitive, that's not quite the right word, but you're trying to get like yell the loudest or be noticed the loudest amongst all these other people that are trying to be noticed and yelling the loudest. And I don't know if it's the best thing, you know. But it is what it is right now, and so many people and so many businesses are turning to social media to try to get business, and it's just sort of something you have to do in today's world to even like have a shot at any of it. But like even with like music, you know, like music, it's never been easier to make music or to put your music out there or to have people listen to your music, but like everyone's doing it, everyone's doing music, so it's just like, how are you really going to be noticed amongst all these other people? So I think what you're saying is kind of a sign of the times too. It probably is an algorithm thing, it probably is other things, but I do think it's just the world we live in now, and there's going to be other platforms that come forward that people, you know, like I'm actually surprised about Twitch. Like when I really started looking at Twitch and how much is on Twitch, how it's not just like a gaming thing, how there's people that do tarot cards, how there's people who do just tons of stuff on there.
Twitch.
And how at some point maybe it's going to be harder to maybe do streams and be noticed, because even if you don't do a lot of stuff on there, you can still have like 5 people kind of watching you at a time, you know, and then they'll leave. At some point I'm sure it's going to be much harder, because everyone's going to be maybe doing Twitch, and all these Instagram models are going to be learning about Twitch somehow. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying it's like,
it's true.
It's just, you know, and there's going to be other new platforms. So I don't know what it's all going to culminate to. If at some point we're all just going to be so tired and exhausted from social media that we're going to figure something else out that works better. But yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned Instagram, because I mentioned it happened in WordPress. It did for me. I did notice that on Instagram too, because Instagram, I don't know if you saw my thing I posted the other day where I used to want to pursue filmmaking and all that. And there were a couple different years where I did. But in 2016, I was actually producing and writing a web series that I never actually went into production on. But I had a Twitter, and I had a filmmaking Twitter, and I would get on there and I look back at Instagram. I had a Twitter, but I wasn't on it. Instagram, and I went back and looked at the posts I used to do during 2016 when I was doing that, and there was like 60 to 80 to 90 to 100 and something likes on these things. I'm going, good Lord, when I do Instagram, there's like maybe 3 to 10 likes at the most. And it's like, it doesn't matter what I post. And it probably might be algorithms. Something I also noticed about my Instagram though is that I was like, I had a few hundred people following me, but I was following like 3,000. I'm like, that's not good, and I was like, I don't even know who these people are. I can't believe, how did I even follow that many? It might have been people who at the time when I used to get likes, I used to follow or some kind of thing. But now I'm like I got to get rid of some of these. But even on Twitter, on my Dungeons and Dragons, when I was like following like 2,200 or 2,300 people, and like, a lot of them don't tweet anymore. And it's like, I just went through and removed, I cut it in half. I went through and I cut it in half not because I don't want it. It's like, it's just, I don't even know who these people are. And it just felt, so, but no, that's it. You're right, Kate. I will say this too, in today's world, maybe it's this way for everyone. I have never been so marketed so much in my life, maybe in the last year or so, just everywhere, between the things that show up on the side of your thing because you visited this website, or a zillion emails from I don't know where they're coming from. And Kate's is the scariest. Her Facebook, does custom ads to things like her and I had a conversation about. All of a sudden, she has a custom ad.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like,
that happens. People say that
it's spooky when she.
it does. No, we bought soil.
We bought plant soil a few days ago.
We transplanted our plants and added soil to some of our plants, and I didn't I guess I did post it on my Instagram stories, but I didn't search for soil or anything in Google or anything. And then I'm getting all these ads for soil, the
same company too.
It's just like, come on, guys, be a little bit more clever with it at least. Like, these things,
people are getting desensitized. They have to be from all this marketing.
Yeah, but one thing I do sell things that aren't related to D&D at all, so I'm not going to talk about it here. But we learned that, like, it used to be in the past that people would need 5, on average, like 5 exposures is what they call them, to buy something. So like, and it's just about commercials too. Like, people use commercials and ads because they don't expect you to buy it the first time, but after you see it, the same thing for like 5 times, you're gonna buy it. But nowadays it's like 15. It's like 15 or more that you need. 15 exposures you need or more. And so, and it's because you're getting marketed all the time. And so it's literally like, it's like, do you want to just be this person that's like putting the same thing out there, like advertising it and kind of not being annoying, but like, or how do you go about this this new world that we live in where everyone is so over marketed? It's true. But I do think that I've always kind of been someone, despite everyone's negativity, who always saw the good in social media and always saw the potential of social media as a real form for good and coming together. And never before, in so many ways, can people have a community from a distance. Never before can people, I mean, this isn't about D&D, but like, be so politically and things, like George Floyd, the whole aspect wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for social media. So there's a lot of good that comes from social media, even as it's a very kind of exhausting platform, I think. And in relation to D&D, I mean, I'm hardly on Twitter, but I when I get on Twitter, I feel it feels good to be a part of a community that stands for D&D, something, but it is a lot of marketing too, but it is also people that just love the game, that love the whole thing, and that are interested in talking about it and jokes about it. And I love the things where it's like, describe your character, and then everyone talks about their character, or do a gif of your character, or all that kind of stuff. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, no, I think there's something really strong and powerful about having a community that you can share experiences with, that you can relate to somebody else or share common interests with. And I think that's something that wasn't there for a long time for the role-playing community.
That's for sure.
So with social media, that's been one of those things that's been really great to see all these other people all across the country, all across the world. Really, it's pretty interesting to see people from other countries who share the same interests as you, and to be able to have conversations with them about it. I think it's really interesting how many people enjoy watching other people role play. All the podcasts or listeners to them. I know I've actually gotten into a couple of them, including Critical Role, but just even some of the smaller ones. I mean, there's really a desire people have to connect in that way, to share experiences. I think that's one of the things that role playing does really well for a lot of people. And it's one of those things that you've seen so much more of now with Twitch and Twitter and all the social medias that are out there. And then obviously because of the pandemic, playing online with other people has become huge, which I never would have imagined, when I first started role playing. And being able to play with you guys and with Chris over in the UK. I mean, it's amazing, to be able to have those experiences with people all around the world.
Yeah, our group we're in California, and Eric and his wife are in Ohio, and our other players in the UK, near Oxford. And and even the people I've had on the show have all been people that I have. What are you laughing at?
Oh, no, I'm just laughing because it's like, we're not, I don't know. I just was like, we're not going to say last names here, and then we're like telling everyone where we live.
It's just, his name is Chris, and he lives near Oxford. You're on your own.
We're a little, we're a little bit safer in California because like California is so huge. It's like, no one's going to find us in California, but unless you said like where in California, but yeah, I just thought it was kind of funny, just like.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm me, I'm me on my social media. I'm me when I interact with people. So I've never been worried about hiding my identity. Who's terribly radical in his thinking. So I don't usually stir up trouble. But yeah, aside from the time zones, which are a pain in the ass, being able to play with people online or just to even chat with people online, it was super, super cool.
I was going to say that for the group, the first people that I've had on the show have been people that I felt are true enthusiasts of D&D and also our other RPGs. But I mean, the first show is a guy from Canada and a guy from Texas, and then the last show is a guy from I believe Austria, and then you're out in Ohio. So it's and that's another cool thing, of course. So that's true of any kind of thing that you go on out there, and the next thing you know, we play in a group online together because we met through Twitter. And that was the other thing. I was on Twitter for a while before I finally said, God, I thought about you. I thought about Chris. I was more interactive with you than Chris. I just knew Chris was really enthusiastic and seemed nice. And I don't know why he felt like at first, I reached out to him because of his enthusiasm. I don't even remember exactly what made my choice. Cause what happened is Kate, when she played in this one thing, but then she DM'd me a little bit with a wizard. I was having fun with that, but that didn't really go. We were too busy with our campaign. But at some point she said, you know what? I want to run a campaign, but I want to run it with more people. She didn't want to do a one-person campaign like I've been doing with her.
Right.
In fact, I'm sure that I like running tons of characters more than a lot of people like running. But I love bigger groups. And the thing of it is, so then I kind of started, okay, well, she didn't have a presence really with the D&D community, but so I kind of started to reach out to people. I reached out to Chris, and then I'd wanted to play with you for a while, actually. You were the person, like I said, that I actually interact the most with on Twitter in the last few years. So I'm glad that that's all finally happened. But
yeah, a lot of people seem to really like you, Eric.
Yeah, you've got them all fooled.
Yeah.
I played his character. He took the dark, evil dagger and stuck it in his pocket, and we're like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
Well, that was something I wanted to do for a while. Like I said, I've never really gone to conventions. I've always wanted to, but it's one of those things. Either the timing is not right, or the money is not right, or I've got a bunch of friends who always go, and they're always telling me how great it is. So one of these days, I'll actually pull the trigger. And I've been thinking about getting involved with people who are playing online, but I was a little hesitant. And then when you were like, "Hey, we've got this opening," I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." I actually, maybe 2 years ago, played in a Twitter D&D game. It was a one shot, which was it was just text based, it was still really fun. I was surprised by how involved or how much it drew me in. And Tim was actually involved in that.
I've wanted to do that. I just don't know how to make it and do it, but I just want to play all the damn time. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was basically just a 2-day thing that we did, and because it was one of those things where the guy who was running it would throw out a message that was a group message, and then maybe he'd message you individually. You'd have time to respond. So I actually was able to do it while I was delivering mail. So I'd get back to my van and I'd see what message was there, and then I'd respond to it. Then I'd go back to delivering mail. Cool. And then the following day was my day off. The whole day was spent doing that. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I would totally do Twitter things if I knew how to make them work or was part of somebody else's that was doing it.
I've seen other people talk about doing. Can't remember what the term for it is, but basically role playing through the mail by letter, and now I'm assuming it would be through text messages, obviously, because we have that ability to do that. But it seems like a really interesting way of doing it. I don't know how you would do a long running campaign that way, but I know people have done it. So
yeah, I would be totally into that because I'm the kind of person who wants to play D&D 5 days a week, pretty much, and not really gonna happen right now. Although her and I played a lot.
my first exposure, I'll use that word, my exposure to D&D. No, the first time I was ever introduced to D&D was with like my brother and a group of his friends, and it was just not my vibe at all at the time. But I remember, like, in his campaign, what they do is they write like notes to each other. And it was like the funniest thing to me that, like, this group of people, I mean, and you couldn't like really hide it, that you're handing this like letter to like, this one person, like like kind of, it's just between you, what you two are talking about. I'm like, and I guess cell phones were a thing back then when I was a teenager. They weren't like smartphones. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I think it's really funny that there can be that kind of fun, you know, where you're writing notes to each other, like keeping secrets from the other players, and it's just like, what are you guys writing about? I know even for me not playing, I'm like, I wonder what they're doing, like what they're conspiring to do,
Yep.
or you know. And I think that it's kind of cool because in a kind of a campaign where like everyone's together, like kind of like how we're all together, or how even Critical Role everyone's together. Some they used to be able to leave, but now I don't know how easy that would be if one of the players needed to be alone. But that is a good way to have like one-on-one character interactions where like characters can be having their own kind of development outside of like the rest of the storyline. I don't know, I just think
That's
it's kind of
true.
cool.
Matt used to ask everybody to leave, but like Travis.
Or
Back
yeah.
on that note, in the current campaign, those are some of my favorite moments. Back when he used to do that with Travis, his Warlock. That was like all that stuff. But I loved all that. Whenever people stepped away, I did that in my second campaign I ran. I used to take people out of the room and talk to them, and I thought that was a lot of fun. I didn't really do it with my original when I was a teenager. It wasn't that elaborate.
Yeah, it is really cool. Something else, I forget what it was recently, but I remember it was something really nerdy that is becoming like popular or something. And it's just like, I swear nerds are gonna take over the world. Like being nerdy is like so trendy right now, and being a nerd is like I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why D&D is so popular, is because people love it, but also because it's so trendy. It's, you know, it's like people, it's such a trend. Like it really is. I mean, I hope it kind of lasts, which I think it will.
I think it will.
I think it's only going to get bigger, honestly. But man, can you imagine like just huge, I don't know, like on TV, like I don't know, Dungeon Master contest or something. I don't know. I don't know. It'd be like the possibilities of the Olympics. I'm just joking.
Right.
But,
Yeah, I was shocked. Go ahead, Eric.
Nerd culture's become pop culture, and even, you know, video gaming is so huge.
That's huge.
Pretty wild to see how that's happened.
It is like everyone I know too, like even if they're like a bro, you know, like I remember people that were like, oh no, I'm into basketball and playing football, and you know, I'm not a nerd and do those computer, you know, but now it's like, yeah, I play football, but yeah, I play like these Call of Duty games, or I play, you know, like, or I play football, you know, on games too. Like everyone games now. Everyone plays video games for sure. You're right about that.
Yeah. I know when I was in high school, it was like, if you were into that stuff, you were a total nerd outcast, or at least that's kind of how it felt. So you know, you didn't really express that to people. And then even in college, I didn't really see too many other people into it, and I didn't talk about it. But now it's everywhere. Yeah. I had somebody at work in my post office the other day talking about how they were thinking about playing D&D, and I'm like, really? It's just everywhere now.
Yeah,
it is everywhere now.
I think it's really good until it starts becoming like kind of like with Critical Role, people bashing on creators and bashing on people trying to create kind of thing.
It's getting brutal out there.
But other than that, I think it's awesome. You know, I mean, I think the more people that, you know, that like it, I mean, it's a really enjoyable thing. It's a really amazing thing to like, you know, and it's not hurting anyone. You know, it's just fun.
Right.
You know what I mean? So.
Well, I think the only problem you have is when people decide that what somebody else is doing with the thing that you like, because they like it too, they should be doing it the way you do it, or you have some ownership over what they're doing with it, which is completely. I don't understand that at all. You know, if it weren't for the internet, that wouldn't be a thing. You know, you wouldn't be worrying about what somebody else was doing with that game that you play too. So I don't get it at all.
I mean, I think it is also partly because, like, just in Critical Role's kind of what is the word? I don't know. Not everyone's going to be Critical Role, but like, you know, Critical Role has a large presence, but they also, this is kind of like their company, you know, like they make money off of it. And so I think sometimes people, when it gets to that level, they do feel like, well, I'm putting my money into this, or I'm a, you know, subscribed or I bought this, or I put money to this, and they feel a type of ownership because they kind of helped create it from the ground up in a way, you know, they've been with it, but but they don't have ownership over it. You know, it's not their creation as much as they've supported it. They've helped build it, and but it's not theirs. You know, it's not their company. And honestly, for me, it's kind of like Critical Role can just do whatever they want. Matt can do whatever they want. If they decided to like have a campaign where they're gonna go and beat up puppies, I'd be like, yeah, maybe we need to stop this. But like, other than that, you know, like it's a game, you know, it's like calm down. Like sometimes I'm just like, calm down. Like it's not that big a deal. Like honest to God, it doesn't really affect you that much. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, that's one of those weird ones where you can tell that when they started, they were just a group of friends playing. And then obviously they're all voice actors. So there's that level of it too that most games don't have. And then because of the popularity and their interaction with their fans, which I think is awesome, they have this community who are diehard. Some of the people involved in it are just so diehard, but so creatively interesting and amazing. But they've just become maybe too involved in it, you know. And obviously that group has turned it into a commercial thing too, which is fantastic. If you can turn something you love doing into a job or a revenue
it's kind of our own
stream, that's amazing. And I see a lot of people on Twitter who love whatever role-playing system they're in, not just D&D, who love it, but also create stuff and want to do that for a living. I think that's fantastic if you can do that.
I think it's awesome too, but it's also like, you don't think that these people give any like value, you know what I mean? I mean, yeah, they maybe are living the dream, quote unquote, you know, being able to do what they want. I mean, some of it can be just jealousy because people probably want to do that too, you know. Right. But it is also like, this is just with anything. Some people see the finished product, but they don't see like all the work that went behind it. They don't see really the effort or really how much went into creating something. And so I don't know what my point was. Again, I forgot my point, but anyway, I'm just trying to say that oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot my point. I was like yeah, this is gonna be such a cool point I'm gonna make right now.
But wait till it comes back around.
Yeah. What was I gonna say about Critical Role? Man,
I'll do a side thing. You think about it.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it. Yeah, I know every now and then I see Matt do these tweets where recently he did one where no one could reply, I don't know if I've ever seen him do that before. I guess you saw it. I've wondered about Matt with the enormity of the success. You know, everybody thinks, oh, you know, they're so fortunate or they don't deserve it or whatever, but there's a lot of stress comes with that. And I know that he's a person who seems like would have some issues with a lot of stress. You know, I think he's he strikes me as somebody who I don't want to say wants to make everyone happy, but he definitely wants to show both sides. He wants to listen, but also not be, you know, pushed around, you know. But you know, I worry sometimes things get too big, and I worry a little about, like, one of the reasons that one of their strengths is that there's like 8 of them, and it's actually this makes them strong. But on the other side, you know, is one of them going to crack because of all this stress and focus? And I know you're making money, or you're getting popular, or maybe, you know, you're seeing some dreams come true, dreams you didn't know you had, or whatever. But every now and then, you know, because he even said I could see him. I don't like that. And what my point was is that he mentioned something about he likes to be able to interact with people on the internet, but it's becoming harder sometimes. And if I was a celebrity, I would not be on Twitter at this point, with cancel culture and the power that companies are giving basically trolls to like affect people's careers, and it's kind of nuts. But yeah, I mean, we're fortunate. If you like them, you're fortunate that they're even, and I don't mean they're fortunate because they're celebrities. I mean fortunate because they're neat people, that they interact directly with you know, with the community. I will say this though, like Callison, Laura, even Laura does an occasional tweet and everybody loves it. She's not, like, I don't think, gigantically interacting with the community. And that's not an insult. My point is, like, Callison, some of them don't do a lot of it, but, you know, Marisha interacts, Matt interacts, it's I'm like, God, it would, and it's already kind of like, you know, like I don't think the shows are live now because of COVID. And part of me is like, I used to like that live feeling, to know that they're in the studio right now doing it. And I am cool with the way they are now, because it really, it only took a couple episodes to you kind of forget that's the case. But there's a part of me that still likes the live, and there's a part, and I like the fact that they interact with the community, but because they're getting bigger and bigger, it's like the trolls get bigger, and the more it's like everything good is bigger, but everything bad gets bigger too with anything. So it's hard for me to see. I hate when I see Matt's almost not that one, but other times basically kind of apologizing for something that he did in the game. It's like, God, it's their game. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I know my point now. I was gonna say that about value, about. I mean, I said you don't think they give value earlier in what I was saying, but I basically was just trying to say that anyone that gives as much as Critical Role has given, it doesn't, it's just they give a lot, like and so they don't necessarily deserve, even if they're living out the dream. Like, are these people just like spiteful or something that are not able to just be happy for someone for being able to kind of have this awesome career? Like, I don't know. It just, to me it's just people, just people maybe being don't believe in themselves or don't want to go for it themselves, and so they kind of blame other people for their success, which is like a personal issue that people have to deal with. But on what you're saying, James, with like the stress level, I mean, I think some people, once you get to like that level, some people learn to just not care. I mean, because what other people think of you literally has nothing to do with you most of the time. Sometimes it does if you're like completely narcissistic or whatever, but most of the time it's a reflection of like their own stuff. And so some people are able to maybe not focus on it as much, even if people are super negative. But like with the stuff with Matt, I think maybe he might be more affected than someone else, like Sam. Maybe I don't think Sam gives a crap what people say, but I remember the one that really got me was with Laura, with that game that she did.
Yeah, that sucked. And
people like saying that they were gonna like hurt her and stuff. I mean, that's like abuse. So there is a line definitely where people can be abusive, like really damagingly abusive. But it's just, like I said, like we were talking about before, like how long is this thing gonna hold? I don't think social media is gonna hold for like forever, to some extent. I think it's gonna have to be reformed, because people are like, it's too intense, it's too much to handle for people. It's
like you said, there's all the good of it, and it's also kind of exhausting. It's true.
But
I like to be positive. I like to reinforce positivity. I like I try to ignore the negativity that's out there. I certainly don't interact with it. I just don't think that it's very productive.
Yeah.
And I think you can almost find exactly what you want, regardless of what you're looking for when it comes to social media. So if you want that negativity and that nastiness, there's plenty of it out there. I just don't. That's not what I'm there for. I like interacting with people. I like seeing the creativity that people offer, the positivity. That's what I tend to focus on, and for me, it's pretty easy for me to find that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's cool.
I mean, I actually kind of agree. I agree. I think it is easy to find higher vibes, or whatever you want to call it, on social media. I think it's just there is a lot of noise, is I guess what I'm trying to say. A lot of stuff, a lot of stuff that even stuff that triggers me sometimes, where I'm not looking for it. Something is like this negativity that I'm not looking for, and it just kind of is like, wow, this is, but yeah, overall, I think, and I'm sure, if you listen to the other ones, other interviews, like D&D means like a whole lot to me, like a whole lot, and like in an indescribable way. Like it really has done a lot for me as a person, because you have certain like a certain mindset about who you are, or what you can do, or and I've never been like a girly girl, or like one of these girls that were like a cheerleader or whatever, not to be stereotypical or whatever, but at the same time I was very much closed off to the possibility of like doing something like role playing, and thought I would never be into it or be able to do it well, and honestly, it was mostly just fear and labeling myself and limiting myself. And so like if there's something that I'm like, okay, you know, I'm not this type of person, I'm like, well, maybe don't say you're not this type of person until you try it out and see if you like it, because you you know, and I just think it's a good thing. It's a good thing for people to do, because it gets people out of their comfort zone. And you know, even like with the thing that we did with James's family, I wasn't a part of it, but like, you know, just even like reading a script and kind of acting a little bit, you know, it can, you know, it's therapeutic. It gets you out of your body. It gets, you know, you stop thinking as much what people think, you know, you just kind of have to do it, you know. Every time when I play, when I'm your dungeon master, it's like sometimes it's harder than others, but I'm just like, okay, well, I have to do it. Like, what am I gonna do? I'm here and these people expect me to do something, so like, even if it's crap, it's just, you sort of have to just do it anyway. And that's what like life is, you know. You just sort of have to just like, whatever comes at you, just, well, I'm here, you know, you're just gonna have to do your best. And so I know that for me it's been a like a learning, really positive learning kind of thing for me. But not to talk about myself too much.
Yeah, no, for me it's been a great creative outlet, D&D and role playing in general, because not only the storytelling aspect, but I like making maps. I like making dioramas and scenery and stuff. So I get into that too. I like painting the miniatures. I've just gotten into all the little creative aspects of it. And I think a lot of people enjoy that, the creativity of it.
For sure.
Because, you know, the rules are what they are, but I've had so many interactions within sessions where you do something that's not in the rule book, and it just makes the session that much better when the GM allows it, or that they flourish something. You know, that whole creative aspect really keeps me coming back. That's why I've been playing it for so long, because it is so creative, because there's so much you can do with it. You know, I've got burnout of D&D here and there. I've tried other systems and I've played other games, but it's definitely the one that I keep coming back to. It's that fantasy genre in general is what I love.
Yeah,
me too.
It is really amazing, just like fantasy in general. Like, it's crazy, the fantasy like genre, like how not enticing, but just a lot of people like fantasy. Like, a lot of people like elves, and a lot of people like magical other world, or, you know, like the realm of fantasy. People really really like it. And you know, for me, I'm not gonna disclose too much of my concepts right now, because I think very strangely. But I think in like we should maybe think about why we are in touch so much with fantasy. That's all I'm gonna say. Is maybe it speaks to us because
I'm an elf.
Yes, because I'm an elf. No, there, I said it.
Why do you think I'm wearing the snow hat?
I just think that we aren't tapped into our truest potential as people and how powerful we can be. And I think that's why we're drawn to magic and stuff, is because we do have a lot of magic within ourselves. I mean, even laughing, smiling, you know, acting. I mean, I think movies are freaking magic. Like, it's incredible. You can be watching a movie, and 5 minutes earlier you can be freaking bawling your eyes out because it's so sad, and then you can be laughing. I mean, I mean, you don't think that that's somehow. Anyway, I think magic is real. Basically, is what I'm trying to say. So whatever.
Well, no, it is. I mean, imagination. I think that's
the word.
Humanity's greatest gift is imagination and creativity. Mm-hmm. And when you see people who don't have that, it's kind of odd. At least from my perspective, I know people who are like that, and I just go, well, it's got to be so limiting, and the world must be so less vivid and exciting, and you don't have any imagination or any creativity. And you know, that can be found anywhere. I see that outside when I'm just hiking out in nature. You see it, and I don't know. I find it very inspirational, and it just makes life better. Art, creativity, imagination.
I don't know if we can talk about this. Sorry, I'm just going to say one little thing. But we're watching this one show with Ewan McGregor called Long Way Up, and they're from the kind of bottom of South America. They're riding all the way back to LA on motorcycles, but they're going through some of the most beautiful, like just like breathtakingly beautiful places, like landscapes and crap, and it's just like, wow. Like you think that fantasies in this whole other world, but like, whoops.
It's in Bolivia.
What's that?
What was that?
I hit my headphones. I like hit my arm, and so like it kind of like pulled on my arm, but it also pulled on it. Kind of, I don't know. It's hard to describe. Anyway,
I hate cords.
But yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing, like the level of just fantastical beauty that is actually on Earth.
Yeah,
and that
crazy.
Inspires us probably in some way to create other things. You know, I mean, like it's
yeah. This stuff isn't just pretty. If you get an opportunity, it's on like the Apple Plus, which is another service for $5.99 a month. But
I think nature is the great inspirator. I think that's where everything.
I agree.
Just the natural world, and I'm fortunate enough that I get to be outside most of the time while I'm working. I'm just in residential areas, but even there, nature is to be found. You can find beauty in anything. And gosh, it makes my day so much better just to be able to see that stuff. So
yeah. Anyway, James, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
What was I talking about?
I know you're going to say something, and I'm like, let me speak. I railroaded you, or whatever it's called. Steamrolled you. Steamrolled you.
I don't remember.
Oh.
Was there anything, Eric, you wanted to ask us about anything about our D&D play?
Aren't we interviewing him?
You can interview us. No, I'm just gonna say. If you had any
I'm
questions.
not the most positive person, so I don't know. What was your first D&D experience, James or Kate?
You want me to go first?
Yeah, I mean.
Okay, my first D&D experience. It's funny if you look at the thing that I pinned on my Twitter that I pinned at the top, and I've been tempted to take it down, put something else on, but it really kept I just kind of want to stick. It has to do with when me and my brother were really little kids. He's only 15 months younger than me, so we were real close. We went into a store, like a hobby store, and on the right was a glass case with all the metal minis. And I was just like, wow. And this is one of my first memories, and I don't know if there were ones before this, but so metal minis, and then you kind of look at all of them, and then when you get towards the back of the shop, there's a back room or this huge table where they had, like fake trees, and it was like a full-blown long table. And there's like, maybe 4 to 6 nerds from the past back there playing. Like, oh my God, that's what I want to do. That was like a major moment for me in regards to D&D. Other thing was that my mom's friends, a couple of her friends, I don't know they probably were in their 30s, I guess, or 40s. Anyway, they used to go into their back room of their house and have these games for like 2 or 3 days straight. I watched the original animated Hobbit. That was a big one. Aragorn was I just thought Rangers were the best, and I've still never played a Ranger, and I really need to in D&D because I run them. I run Rangers. I have several in my games, but yeah, so these are some of my original things. All I know is that from a very young age, I wanted to play D&D, but I didn't get to play D&D until I was like 17, when I finally said I have to run it if I'm ever going to want to play. But I wanted to play earlier than that. I wanted to play because of these minis. I wanted to play because of, like I said, it was like my imagination. I've had real big imagination since I was little. And I know it's interesting too when you're a kid, you have all this stuff, and sometimes people lose that, and they get like, oh, I got to become an adult now, and they lose a lot of. They're really cutting off a big part of who they are, and I think D&D really unlocks that part again. Peter Pan, if you will. But yeah, I would say my original first time I ever played was, like I said, I'm gonna have to run one. I ran one for my brother, his girlfriend, and my brother's best friend. I ran a group, but then the problem is I fell in love with dungeon mastering. I was like, I loved creating all the characters because I didn't want to just play one character. I love creating the world. I love this. And I loved the feedback. They seemed to really enjoy it. And because I was a writer, but I didn't know that when I was younger, but I am a writer, I really enjoyed creating worlds and having people inhabit it, and creating characters and having people interact with them. But that's kind of like for me. So really 17 was probably when I started playing. But like I said, I always saw the little minis. I think on comic books, they had ads for D&D. maybe. Like they're in these weird, obscure places. It's interesting, like you were talking about that whole religious aspect, the whole fear of the whole religious people against D&D back in the, Tim was one of those people. He said, I think they literally made him stop because of that, at least partially. He mentioned it if you watch all that episode. I never had to deal with any of that, but I will say that the guy that gave me all his AD&D books, he had a lot of demons and devils in his stories. He was and that's one of the reasons his girlfriend's like, you need to quit, because he was like, obsessed with devils and demons and devils. So he actually quit it because of himself. He got too into the dark stuff. It was funny because like several years later, he wanted all his books back. Like, sorry. We're not giving them back. It sounds terrible. Like I should have given them back, but I was a kid. But at the time, you get attached yourself.
Right.
But yeah, so my experience really was running a group for a year or two with people that my brother really knew, and I loved it. And then how the second thing happened was, like I told you, I did some Shakespeare with my brother. He gave up on pursuing acting, because he wasn't discovered. He really wanted to be discovered, and he never was discovered. So he literally gave up on pursuing it after a few years. And for me, I fell in love with theater. So then, but what happened was in my late 20s, I was really missing theater, and I got into a Hamlet production, and this guy got wind that I that I played D&D, and he got all excited. That's how my second group started. I hadn't played in 11 years, but I ran a group for some theater actors and some good people from work. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah. How about you, Kate?
Yeah, it answered it.
Good.
I'm just joking. I'm joking.
She's gonna sneak in and edit this more. My responses.
No,
Go ahead, Kate.
With me, it's interesting. You kind of stole my idea about Lord of the Rings, because really, if you really look at how many creative things were kind of inspired because of D&D, you'd be pretty amazed. A lot of things have been inspired because of D&D,
because of Lord of the Rings, or because of D&D?
Because of D&D,
okay, got it. Go ahead.
For instance, Marilyn Manson was very, very, very inspired by D&D. Maybe that's making D&D look bad, but but no, he was really inspired by D&D. So, and he used to that was his thing. He was used to ditch school and just play D&D with his friends all day and create these worlds. And so for me, a lot of artists that maybe were inspired by D&D probably was my first really interaction with maybe some of the concepts or creativity of D&D, I'll have to say, because I'm being clever here. No, I'm just joking. But yeah, no, my other one was just that game with my brother, because my brother played second edition, and then he eventually was like, oh, you want to come to one of our games that we're doing at my friend's house? And I'm like, okay. And then I didn't like it. So that definitely was my first interaction with D&D. And then James, because obviously James gets you excited about everything.
How old were you that first game?
The first game? Man, I'm trying to remember. I was a little emo kid, so I'm trying to even remember what I think one of the other interviews I said 13, but I'm pretty sure I was older. I think I was 15, maybe 15 the first time. And, I don't know.
You played when you were 11, huh, Eric? I wish I played at 11. You don't have any idea how many years I wanted to play before I got to play. And I was kind of I'm going to have to do it if I'm going to play. Good.
I had a couple of older cousins. I had a couple cousins that were my age, and then most of them were older. And we would see them maybe twice a year. We would go up for summer vacations and Christmas to Maine. And the one summer, one of my older cousins had found it and decided to run it with us. And I was just captivated by it right off the bat. And then we went to, I think it was just a used bookstore. I don't think it was a gaming store. And they had some old D&D books. And I didn't have much money, but I had enough to get a used copy of the advanced rules. And actually, I didn't. I had to borrow a little money from my cousin, who charged me interest, which was a couple quarters. So I got that book, and like I said, that whole summer we played it, that summer vacation. And when I came back home, I didn't really talk too much to my friends about it. Like I said, I had one friend whose father was a Baptist preacher, and another friend whose mother was super religious, and I just didn't really talk about it too much. And I remember I started collecting like the miniatures, and I would read some books, like the Choose Your Own Adventure book. So it was kind of my own little thing that I was kind of keeping secret for a number of years. And then that movie Mazes and Monsters came out, and everybody was talking about how dangerous it was, and all the kids would get into the sewers and try and play the game. I'm like, is that what you're supposed to do? Play in the sewers? What? So like I said, it was like kind of a personal passion for a long time until I got into high school, when I actually switched schools. So I was new to this high school that I had switched to, and I think it was in a math class. I was just doodling on my book cover. I was drawing D&D monsters, and one of my, who's now a longtime friend, at the time I didn't know, he was leaving class and he saw my book and he's like, "Oh, you're into D&D?" And I'm like, yeah. And so we struck up a conversation. That group of friends in high school is the people I first started playing D&D with. So, but for the longest time, it was just kind of just a personal passion, just something I was interested in, books I was reading. I was into comic books. I was into Lord of the Rings and, the animated movie, and didn't really flourish until high school and really college for me.
Another one that was a little later, but not that later because it's a pretty older movie, but E.T. had them. They were playing D&D and E.T., and Spielberg was a great director, and he especially for kids, it was just like he created these cool worlds of but he I don't know if you remember, if you're pretty familiar with how they had D&D in that.
Yeah.
They had all the kids were over, huh?
Zero charisma, Sinta Supremus.
yeah, you know more than me. So yeah, I remember that in ET they were all over to play D&D, and maybe it was even Elliot's first time they let him play or something. I don't remember. Yeah. But then they had pizza delivered, and for me, like pizza's like pizza and D&D and your friend, and I was just that movie kind of pushed me over the edge in regards to like how I saw it and how I wanted it to be when I played. So I was just like, wow, that was like 82 or 83. I don't know what year that was.
Yeah, right around there. Yeah, that's funny. I was fortunate because my parents were not, I mean, we always went to church, but my parents were not super religious. My parents were pretty creative people, actually. And my dad was always into fantasy and sci-fi. Like I said, he had this huge Hobbit book that was illustrated from the anime. It had the illustrations from the animated movie. I was fascinated, looked through it and read it. And so they were very open to that kind of stuff. They were open to me being creative pretty much in any way I chose. So I didn't have to hide it at home. So I was able to enjoy that, at home at least, if not with my friends growing up. So that was pretty beneficial for me.
Yeah, we had a single mom. There's 4 of us siblings. So really my sisters are 4 years older and 8 years older. And they kind of, at a very young age, were out of here. I think the sister is 4 years older, didn't want to babysit us. So she's like, I don't want to be the babysitter because mom has to work and all these things. So she got out of here young and lives with the other family and stuff. And then my other one was just gone. So it was really my mom, my brother, and I growing up. And she was very, she basically gave us the living room. We used to play action figures in there, just do giant wars. And we didn't have any limitations in regards to creativity either. So that was pretty awesome. But I wish I would have loved to have been playing D&D about 5 years earlier than I was.
Yeah, me too. And I have a lot of siblings, but I'm the oldest of 7. And the next siblings beneath me are 5 years younger than me. My youngest sister is 11 years younger than me. So there was a pretty big age gap. So I never really played D&D with them, although we did play Battle Masters, which is this had a huge map, and it had the different armies of goblins and chaos. And
I feel like we had Battle
Imperial
Masters.
Army.
Sounds really familiar.
Yeah. We played that.
You had Hero Quest. I know they're redoing.
Yeah, we had Hero Quest,
now.
which we played. I didn't actually. One of my cousins had that, so we played it when we got together with them. So that was about the closest I got to with my brothers and sisters as far as the D&D went.
Yeah. My brother and I were really creative and played a lot of creative, all this stuff. And I've mentioned this in different places. I wanted him to play D&D with me now. Just he hasn't had a computer. It's hard to get him online. Let's just put it that way. He loves his big cell phone and all that. But I have not been able to barely. And then he had to come down here in January for something he brought his girlfriend, and finally he sat down and played. You probably heard about this too. Frost Realm. We had one session, and it was awesome. And I've been trying since January. I've been trying to get him to play, and I haven't been able to get to do online playing. But even in person, he's just a tough one to tie down. But
he's also, like, just his personality. He's kind of like not manic, but he's very like. I mean, you saw him in this as
he was crazy as Scrooge. Oh man,
he wasn't like calm. Like he was pretty. Having someone like that kind of sit down and
it's true. I was always the one when we play even board games. I was always the one that read. Even though I wasn't a reader, I was always the one that had to read the rules, or we would just never play anything. I was the only one that had the patience. You're right. He never really had the patience to read I don't know if he read the rules to any of the games we ever played. I think I had to read them all, which sucked because I was not a reader. But the rules are smaller than books, though, so it was okay.
I'm only slightly cool because my brother is literally the coolest person on the planet. I'm not lying. Like, I have a little bit of cool because I was like, he's my older brother, and I would look up to him, and I just copied everything he did. And even though I'm a girl, I copied everything he did, and so I'm a little bit cool because of him. But other than that, like, I remember growing up, he was really into Nightmare Before Christmas. Before it was cool, I remember he was into like everything that's cool before it was cool, and so I'm like, yeah, that's cool. And even though I didn't think it was cool, I just liked it because my brother did. Until I became older and realized, oh yeah, I do like this. But I used to skateboard because of him. I used to play friggin' Tony Hawk because of him. So much because of my damn brother. But
Cool.
And he's like, come play D&D. I'm like, I should have known. I should have known that you'd best me, even though I said no. It's just But yeah, we're like, he's sort of like a nerd hipster. Like he's sort of like he definitely hates anything that's mainstream. And he's very, very nerd based, but he's kind of cool too. I mean, he's really stylish, but yeah, he went to school for like his dream. I don't know if this is still his dream, but his dream for a while there was to do a demo of a game because he wanted to create video games. So he went to school for it and he had a whole script in mind. He had the whole demo in mind that he was gonna create. And then he was gonna try to send it off to get it created. And he was like talking about how that the only other game that's ever done that really was Minecraft. Minecraft was like a demo, and I guess a game, whoever backed Minecraft, obviously they've made bank and more off that. So he was basically like his dream, but life gets in the way, and he has 2 kids now and everything. So, but it's cool. It's cool, like family, and especially like nerds in your family. It's pretty cool. I like it.
My son just recently has gone full into Critical Role, and it's not because of anything I've done. My wife and I have watched Critical Role a bit, and I've listened to the podcast. I haven't really kept up with it. It's just so time consuming.
Mm-hmm.
When you're working full time, and you've got a kid in high school and an Etsy store and all kinds of other stuff. It's hard to keep up with. But I love what I've heard. And he has just been nonstop devouring Critical Role. And he's gotten so into D&D now. He's been making characters just to make them.
That's what I do.
And so I started running for him and my wife. And we just started running the revised older edition modules that have been done in 5th edit with the 5th ed rules. Yeah, so we finished, what was it? The B1 module, Into the Unknown, and now we're getting ready to start Into the Borderlands. Before that, we had done.
I just love the word Borderland. I never got to play any of those, and I've seen them. I've been looking at those things forever. I'm like, God, I'd love to. But that's cool.
Yeah, before that, I ran them through the Stranger Things box set, the little one shot, basically. That was a lot of fun. Huh. Yeah, it was fun. It's not too involved. So for like a one shot, just to get things rolling, it's pretty good. Sure.
Do you have a favorite like monster or bad guy in D&D?
That's tough. I love monsters so much. So there's so many monsters that I just adore. Obviously dragons are amazing. I've always been into dragons ever since like The Hobbit and Dragon Slayer, which is still one of my favorite movies.
That's the best dragon movie. Yeah, that's
so good, especially for the time.
Best wizard, best dragon. It still is, I think.
Yeah, it's still really good. In fact, we just watched that with my son for the first time recently. So,
it's amazing.
but gosh, favorite monster, that's a tough one.
My God, I'm just
I
gonna.
love Bulays. Beholders are awesome. Owlbears are classic. I mean, there's just so many good monsters.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of endless, honestly. It's just endless.
Yeah, half the time I just create encounters based on the monsters I want to run.
Absolutely.
I want them to encounter this monster, so how do I do that?
I know.
You write a little bit to get them there. But yeah,
For sure.
What were you gonna say, though, Kate?
Oh no, I was gonna say something, but I'm not. It's fine. I'm not gonna say it now.
Yeah, but dragons are big. Paladins and dragons are. Well, I mean, Dorgan. That's dragon. I mean, it's and I always say, dragon rider and paladin and dragon rider. The dragons and I don't want to just say knights. It really is paladins. Paladins and dragons are like, I think. But I love orcs. They're so classic. It's one of my favorite parts of playing low level play. And I've also made some new orcs that are higher level. And then in Frost Realm, I ended up making things that aren't orcs. They're other things, but they're orcish. But Beholder finally got the run one time, and that was like, wow, that was just awesome. Yeah, and I love doppelgangers because you can sneak into the party and slowly kill the party. Party loves that.
Yeah, I have always had an affinity to two monstrous races. I'm not sure why. Well, I know the one, Yuan-Tis, because I love snakes in real life.
They're awesome.
Night snakes are awesome. But then also, oh my God, now I'm having a word blank.
What do they look like?
They're hyenas. The hyena base. Why can I not think of this? Yenog is their god. Yes, gnolls. I love gnolls. Yeah, gnolls have always been, for some reason, I've always had a fondness for gnolls.
Gnolls are cool. And they're just evil. I mean, generally.
Right. Yeah.
They're just evil. I think of them as archers, and I use gnolls. We killed Yunogu.
Yeah. I remember my Warlock, and I don't know if she really even exists or if you created her. She really exists, right?
What?
James? Whatever her name is. That Gnoll. The really powerful.
Oh yeah. That's one of the cases where I pulled something from Forgotten Realms. Is she serves Yunogu. What's her name with the Z? But I found her stats and everything. What the heck's her name?
I know.
Yes, I read about her, I took her, and I just got her into the game.
But I remember it was just my Warlock's high level, so I don't know what level my Warlock was at this point, but it was just her and the Warlock, and it was just like she can like make these spikes come out of the ground. And like literally, she like impaled
she's like 12 foot tall or something too.
Yeah, impaled my Warlock.
Zayden.
Yeah, that's her name. Zayden.
She's cool. Yeah, I would recommend anybody.
Yeah, look her up. If you like gnolls, she's a beast, man. But it's also like she's obviously a bitch.
Yeah. I also have a fondness for kobolds, which I think is pretty typical amongst.
I don't think I've ever used a kobold ever. For me, kobolds are like pennies. Like I don't like pennies.
Yeah.
But people love kobolds.
Yeah,
I'm not criticizing them. I've never used them.
What are those?
That's you want to associate them to pennies probably because that's what they carry. They carry copper. You kill a kobold, you get some copper.
Are they like goblins?
They're kind of little short dog men or something.
Well, they were somewhat dog/reptilian in the earlier editions, and now they've derived them from dragons, so they look far more reptilian. But they're like a reptilian version of a goblin. But I didn't really fall in love with them until I played Neverwinter Nights, the PC game.
And then
they had an NPC character that would follow you around. He was a little kobold named Deacon.
Okay.
And he became a little kobold bard, and he sang in this squeaky little voice. And I fell so in love with that character. I've actually introduced him into my.
That's awesome.
Aww, that's awesome. Cute.
Yeah, I tend as a DM, I tend to lean towards cool creatures, and I'm not saying it's like vampires or doppelgangers. I tend to not pick out the real freaky, almost horror film looking ones. So then when someone hurls them at me, I'm like, oh my God, those things are freaky. I like that. I think that's hilarious. I just tend to not grab onto things that are super. And then in the case of kobold, they're not cool enough. It's like goblins aren't really cool, but goblins are goblins. They're everywhere.
Yeah, I think. Right. I mean, it's also because of like my character too, probably. But I think I've only ever been to one like gnome city or village or
She
whatever.
doesn't. Yeah, I took her to one
Um,
gnome city where she had to go up this huge elevator. She hates heights, and she hated the city.
my
And
character
I
did,
kind of
yeah.
tried to generate these different things, and like,
But I mean, it's also like you don't like playing gnomes,
no,
so.
gnomes. I played World of Warcraft for 4.5 years, and gnomes were pretty annoying. I didn't play gnomes. People love gnomes. People play Warlock and mage gnomes. Yeah, I don't play a lot of halflings either. I don't play a lot of gnomes. We've got a halfling in her group that is awesome. He's like anyway, but he's like healer, and he sings, and he's the cook, and he's like the epitome of a halfling. But for the most part, and it's not on purpose. I don't say I don't want a gnome. I just don't remember to do gnomes. I don't even, they're like barely in our world. It's
See,
just in
but
that one place.
yeah, I mean, this is sort of what I
But
was
they're
talking
great.
about earlier, that it like informs you about the kind of person that you are and what you like, and kind of
Yeah.
what shade of person you are. You know, I know for me, I have like the most demented thoughts about D&D. Like this, I mean, and it's not that I'm a demented person, but like, you know, I like weird stuff.
Uh,
Like you
Tap
know,
into the abyss.
freaking like experimentate. You know, like the whole thing with that
Yeah.
guy with like getting experimented on, and
Yeah, that was
I mean,
not
like,
something
I
I
don't
would have thought
know,
of.
just
He
not,
even used basilisks, and I've never even used basilisks, and they're a cool creature. So I'm
yeah,
getting
they
to
are
experience a
cool.
lot of stuff in your campaign that I've never used.
Yeah,
So
Yeah, that is interesting. I think that's another part of role playing in general that entices people is the ability to tap into the dark side, the
yeah, I love
villain,
it.
be evil within the game system.
Yeah,
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 With
yeah.
it's not something I typically, as far as characters, I've never really played an evil character until this last campaign, which wasn't my choice, but my character basically died and then was brought back to life by Tiamat, so I kind of turned evil through
Yeah,
that.
sure.
But normally I play chaotic good characters. That's just who I'm drawn to. But as a dungeon master playing the other side of the game with the evil characters, there is something interesting about doing that.
I mean,
Um,
it is. I think, I mean, ugh, sorry, I'm so not opinionated, but I like, you know, I just think about this stuff a lot. But I think just as like a world, you know, we project a lot onto like these darker things, like you know, with like demons and devils and whatever dark creatures, ghosts. You know, like we project a lot of like our fears onto them. Um, but like delving into that, yeah, it's like delving into that, like what scares you or what is considered a no-no, you know, like in the world, you know, it is, I mean, it's you learn so much, like, you know, it's just like it is interesting, like it is interesting, and it informs a different part of your creativity and a different part of your humanity. And I think like, you know, you start when you're an evil character, I'm not like sure it's going to be like this depending on if you're like chaotic evil, you don't necessarily have like a alignment, or like what is the word,
Soul,
you don't care basically
morality.
about
Yeah,
help, about any, even people that you're aligned to, um
right,
allied with, you know, it doesn't really matter. But like if you're like a lawful evil person,
right.
it's literally like you're just like like on the opposite side of a lawful good person, you know what I mean? And so it's like it informs you a little bit about like, well, like, you know, this whole fight against evil, like really what is it? And you know, like you start thinking about like Darth Vader, and you start thinking about like the other side of all of this kind of stuff, and the humanity in it too. And so it's just like it makes you change your perspective a little bit when you see like an enemy, or see someone that is different, or see someone that is into like stuff that, you know, like you know, whatever, you know, you just you start to like, it informs your brain differently, like it makes you think differently about the opposite side. And yeah, it is really interesting, it makes you learn about yourself, like I said before. That's gonna be
Yeah,
my thing.
yeah.
That's
Yeah, because like how paladins are my thing. I relate with them. I love them. I love knights, and I don't know why paladins. I just love them. I have no words for how much I love characters, and I could just play them and play them. But my favorite as a writer and as a like Darth Vader is probably my favorite character of all time. Period. Villain. See, it's kind of an opposite thing. Like I like to play the opposite of who I am, not just because it's a challenge. It's just really I don't know why. I'm really like I love dark characters, and I love like dark werewolves and dark vampires and dark, not like horror, like with these, you know, eyeballs going everywhere, that freaky shit. I mean, not to bring up Matt again, but he definitely likes horror. He brings in some freaky ass, sewn together, eyeballs everywhere creatures. That dude is a horror buff or something. But no, for me, it's like I love doing the dark, and that's the thing. And that thing that's been really great with her is because she's a warlock and she's this, and she's really different reasons. She's kind of right in the middle, so she can like get along with somebody on the light side and somebody on the dark side. So there's been a lot of characters like Osmotus and Grozit and all these really notoriously evil characters that she's been able to have breakthroughs in one way or another with a lot of dark creatures. But I love playing Osmotus and I love playing Grozit. I love playing, like I said, darker character creatures, especially as a dungeon master. I don't know if as a player that I've actually played an evil character, but I haven't been a player a lot. Mostly it's been lawful good, man. And so for me, I mean, I can imagine playing an evil character. That would be challenging and probably really interesting because I know in stories and movies and things like that, those are my favorite character. I like the villains, good villains, more
I
than the heroes usually.
I think for the most part, like evil characters are like, if they're not like chaotic evil, because chaotic evil is literally just like wanting to murder, no morality, just like completely like, you know, just like whatever. But someone that's maybe just like neutral evil or lawful evil, or just
yeah.
evil and no chaotic nature, or even a little bit chaotic nature, but whatever. I think there is like you know, they think they're on the good side in a way, but it's more like people don't know what they want, or you know, it's like they want to dominate or they want to dismantle something because they think what they're doing is the right way, you know, like you know what I mean. That's sort of the what I think of like lawful evil characters. But like good characters do that too. I mean, good characters are like, I know what's best and I'm going to defeat this dragon that is this because this is good,
Kind of thing,
you know.
yeah.
I mean,
Dragons
I'm just saying
yeah.
it really, I mean, I don't know, it's about
But one of the
humanity
things,
and
like for instance, her and her group and her allies, they fought against like a couple different gods that had this undead army,
oh my god.
and they were able to defeat them. And then one of the gods on the other side was lawful evil, I think. Ended up, I don't know. You ended up at his main back wherever his plane was or whatever. You were there, and he literally gave her a weapon. Like it's kind of like because she defeated him, like it was lawful. Kind of like they have a certain set of rules for when like devils, they have certain rules. Lawfuls are very like so. Like I said, even though she was the enemy on the battlefield, he gave her a weapon because you know, yeah, you beat me, so that was impressive. Doesn't mean that you know they won't be battling again like in a few weeks, but the whole lawful evil thing definitely is fascinating.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think as far as player characters that are evil, I think that can be really problematic in a lot of games, especially when you're playing a cooperative game. And if that's what you're drawn to all the time, I have a feeling that there may be some issues, personal issues. It's definitely fun to do here and there, and in the right campaign setting or even just one shot, it's really fun to do. But I've just seen that fall apart when it comes to like a long running cooperative game where one person decides they want to be evil and just screws things up for everybody else.
I've heard a lot about it. It's really kind of it seems kind of selfish on some level when there's like one person who wants to be evil and he's kind of like doing these things against his own group, and it's all fun for him, but it can't last. It's gonna end badly.
My brother, I believe, the campaign that he's in, I mean, he's been playing that for a while, like years and years, and I think he's like over 12th level, but his character is a minotaur, an adapted minotaur, and he is, I think it's Baphomet, maybe. I think he actually is like a cleric of Baphomet, but he's with a good group. But I think it's never been a problem, probably because he's a cleric, probably because he, you know, even though he's evil, there is maybe a sense of morality or a sense of not just going against your group.
His own group. He may be,
yeah, I mean, and
that's where
my brother talks a lot about how it was a lot of role play, a lot of like character development to have to be a minotaur and be evil and, you know, and be in this good group. It was, but it, it was really probably meaningful to him, and it probably was meaningful to the group maybe to have someone like that, that was on the beaten path or whatever you want to call it, kind of with a good group of people now. So I see how it could work. I think it just depends on the person playing and how not serious they take it, because I think
And the DM.
I think when you're if you play like an evil character, there does have to be some sort of character development you can't just like be an evil character and be as evil as you were probably at the beginning. There has to be some sort of morality that you come into, even if you stay evil and are more aligned toward that kind of side. But yeah, he told me, he was telling me that like one of their games, I guess they went into a goblin encampment or something, and so they were like killing all these goblins, and my brother was about to like kill this one goblin, and I guess he like shit himself or whatever. The DM said, yeah, he shits himself.
The goblin did?
Yeah, and so because this big old fucking minotaur with his axe and all this stuff, and he's like, my brother's like, oh, can you cook? And the guy's like, yes, I can cook. And so now they have like a little goblin cook that cooks all their meals.
They
and
couldn't
stuff.
kill him once he shit himself.
But it's like, that's not evil. There's like some humanity in there that he like spared this one poor little goblin that shit himself. I mean, like, so that's kind of what I mean is like, if there is any sort of morality at all, it works. If there's not any morality, it's not going to work probably. But
yeah, sometimes she becomes allies. Sometimes she ends up in the mouth of a red dragon. It doesn't always work out, but she has high aspirations. I was going to say really quick, the second campaign I ran was all evil and or chaotic characters. And I had a paladin, once again, that was hunting them during the whole campaign. So that it also kind of works when everybody's either evil or chaotic, unless they're taking each other out. But yeah, but it is, I've definitely seen a lot more of like people like, especially like rogues or whatever, where they're like, I'm evil and I'm, gonna fuck up the party, and it's like that's just not gonna last.
Yeah. Well, your character is kind of a little bit, Dandy's a little bit like not evil, but he's definitely like, look at this sword, I'm gonna take it, like
curiosity.
It's kind of impulsive. Yes, he's a little impulsive
and curious, and I don't know that he's evil, but I definitely think that his desire for, because curiosity or power or whatever, he's like I said, he's also impulsive. Like actually taking it might have been more impulsive. Now I thought since you took that knife, I'm going, oh, I'm playing a paladin. This is going to be interesting having you over here. I'm like, I think I even said to his sister character, because his wife plays his sister, and I was like, don't hate me if I end up having to kill him at some point. It's just like, I'm not sure what he's going to do with that dagger.
I don't know what I'm going to do with that dagger.
I know, it's cool though.
I do. I'm just joking.
Yeah, I think when you have those kind of aspects in playing your game, I think you really do need the storytelling and the role playing. And I think it needs to come from not only the characters but also from the dungeon master.
I agree.
And I imagine if they've got some kind of overarching story that they want to put in there, that can be really dramatic and work really well. But this is a term that gets thrown around. If you're just a murder hobo, I don't know how that's much fun. Period.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work out well.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah, murder hobo doesn't sound too much. I picture rambunctious teenagers mostly, but it's probably a lot of people that are older than that are murder hobos.
Yeah. I think it'd be fun. I think it'd be fun to play a campaign where like that's literally like the premise of the game is like Grand Theft Auto, like your RPG. I run into here and I start killing everyone. Like see how long you can run.
See,
from
the DM,
cops.
I would just want to fuck them up. I would be hurling things at them that would fuck them up.
Well, I think for like a basic dungeon crawl, that can probably work just fine. But if you're really in a more involved, story-driven campaign, it's just not going to work that well.
No.
Yeah, it's true. Yes. Well, I definitely could play. I play D&D a lot, but I could definitely play more and more. Maybe we'll play with your son someday. Whether you run something or I run something. Maybe you're going to keep him away from your groups.
No. I think this is just like a good starting point for him. Like I said, we're going to try and run through, I think, the majority of those old modules and just see where it goes from there. Maybe he'll want to run something eventually. My wife keeps telling me to let him play with my regular group, but I really don't want any more people. It's about as big as I want it right now.
How
I
big
kind
is
of
it?
have, we got 6 people in that group right now. That's kind of the largest number I feel comfortable with. Which I have run groups larger than that. It just gets a little messy once you start getting bigger and bigger groups. For me, anyways, it's a lot more easy to handle smaller groups. So I tend to prefer 4 to 6 people in a group. I think that's a perfect range of people as far as the numbers go. But I think eventually, yeah, he'll probably want to play in a bigger group, or maybe a group of his own, or even run something for some people. So
yeah, okay, it's funny. Kate and I both have this thing where we would love an opportunity to run like 8 people. That's just like the number that lands for both of us. I have ran I think 4 at the most, and she's running us, which is 4. But I understand what you're saying, and I'm not even saying that once I do it, it might be forget this, or you have to have like an amazing group that is able to work together, especially during combat. So it's
right.
like, but anyway, yeah, it's it's nice in theory, but neither of us have an opportunity. But I think we both want to try bigger groups at some point.
Yeah, I think the biggest group I was ever involved in playing wise was, I think in our Amber group, we had at one time 11 people. And that just is huge. But it's also easier if you're in person to handle that number of people, I think.
Yeah.
That's true too, probably.
I know as just a dungeon master, when it's all 4 of you there, it is so much easier for me. When it's only now that it's like just Chris and you, like, it, honest to God, it's a little bit harder. I don't know, it just, when there's 2 people, it's not quite enough people sometimes for a dungeon master, because they have to do a lot. I mean, I can't even imagine. Like,
I'm always looking at you. What's next? When you got that group, there's always that group interaction that can take up playtime or even create playtime. So yeah, I see what you're saying. It's definitely better.
It definitely is a lot easier, and it's also like there's a lot of discussion, and what are we gonna do, and a lot of character stuff, and also it just is like, in the battling, it's easier because everyone's doing their own thing, and you only really have to focus on the NPCs, and it's more, I don't know, there's more to it, and it's like you're having to kind of do more as a dungeon master, but it's fine, it's not, it's what I'm doing, like I said, every time I do it, I just have to do whatever I can, but yeah, it is interesting, and I think it'd be a lot of people, like 8 people, but I also think it'd be like a lot of different energy, which I think would be cool. Like, I think there'd be, depending on who was in the group, it could be like a lot of good energy kind of making things happen, but sometimes with like Critical Role, like we watch and it's like, why aren't they planning anything? It's just like, come on.
Oh my God.
They just
they're
sort of
terrible at strategizing. Oh my God. They like survive because they're all a bunch of badasses, and because there's so many, like they know how to play their characters, and there's a lot of them there, but man, they do not strategize well generally.
Yeah, one thing that I think is hard, and one thing that's actually easier for like my characters, because I'm in a single person campaign, so it literally is like I get to kind of make the decisions in a way. I mean, even if I've emerged as the leader, obviously, because I'm the player character, as in the group. But in like other groups where you play with people, it's like it'd be kind of unfair to have one person as a leader unless everyone kind of rallies around that person, So there does have to be a very cooperative thing where everyone's sort of, but if there's no leadership, then it is a little bit like nothing really happens. So it is pretty. It is
kind of. The DM has to prompt everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of. It is kind of interesting. It is very interesting.
In the group that in 2017, when I first started to play in a group, and I asked Kate to hang out with me while we played, and that's how they kept encouraging her to play, and finally she did, and that's kind of how she gave D&D another chance and got hooked. But I was I am definitely, I'm not a person that like tells people what to do, but I definitely, try to have some leadership or some this and that, but some people prefer not to do that. But then for me, it was like, there was one guy who basically kind of wanted to talk 80% of the time and run and do everything he wanted to do. And that was and that part of the reason why that group didn't work out, because he was like that. And I would sit there and try to say, well, what do you think? And I talked to, to the quietest player who never talks what do you think we should do? Do you have any idea? Kind of like draw it out of them, which DMs can do that too.
Right.
But the whole leadership thing, it's really kind of like, sometimes it just comes down to what people are comfortable doing or want to do. Some people don't want to lead, but I still like to get input. If I'm a leader, I like to get input from people, and if I'm a DM, I like everybody to give input if possible. I try to do that, because otherwise people won't have as much fun, and I think that they'll kind of hide behind their the normal life quietness, which is all fine, but D&D is an opportunity, because it can be notoriously a safe environment and an environment of acceptance. It's an opportunity for you to go outside of yourself and have more fun, and of course grow from it as a person, but also have more fun. So go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say that I do remember that, I played like a barbarian when I first played.
Yeah.
The first time I ever played, because I didn't want to have to think about things too much, and because I just wanted to be able to. But when we played Starfinder, because that was the next kind of RPG that I played, they had different classes, and I decided, okay, I'm going to do something completely different, and they have something called an envoy, which is basically like Captain Kirk, like you're like in charge, basically you're like the leader, kind of thing. And it's not saying that you are the leader, but you're in that space of like rallying the group. I don't know. You'd have to read it to understand, but like I decided to be that. And I remember the group dynamic was in such a way where it kind of worked, where it just kind of helped. Like I didn't really make decisions for people, but you kind of were the person that kind of broke it open so that people could actually talk, because people wouldn't really even discuss it unless someone said, okay, well, what are we going to do, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was pretty cool. I really liked Starfinder too. I wish we could have continued that. But,
yeah, Starfinder is, I think the same creators as Pathfinder.
Right.
But yeah,
it was going to be awesome. I was a big lizard man, and I was loud, and I was not refined at all.
Yeah,
but it was
fun. But it is interesting, character dynamics and working together and group size and how all this stuff can change the game and change all of it, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I imagine that's a big point to work with as far as conventions where you're playing with people you might not have played with before.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've played mostly with close friends.
Me too.
So I've only experienced that aspect a little bit. So yeah, that's one of the things I've always wondered about as far as conventions, just playing with a large group of people who you haven't played with before, and how unique that experience could be because of the strangers that you're interacting with.
It is. I think I'd be really scared to go to a convention and do that.
I've never been.
Just because you wouldn't want to do it badly, I guess. Like, I don't know, you wouldn't want to like play badly. I don't know. I think that's what I would be worried about. I'd be self-conscious for sure.
Yeah, I can see that. That's personally, I don't know. I guess I've role played enough that I feel like I don't think too many people are going to critique the way you role play unless you're being a total ass. Because I think everybody's there to have fun for the most part.
I think more
less
like
trolls probably
more like the roles kind of part of it, and choosing to do certain things
in particular.
No, I just mean like being a player, because I mean that happens even with people that like that's not how the rule works kind of thing, so that's what I'd be worried about, kind of intimidated by that sort of thing. And I probably would just play a barbarian again if I did like a convention. That's my out. Just learn. All you need to know is rage and frenzy and smash things. And
I think it's interesting when you play where you can tell when certain people have gotten away with more with past dungeon masters. They say, oh well, and I'm like, nah, that kind of really breaks that rule or makes things too easy or it's like, so I'm like, it's kind of interesting to watch certain people. You could definitely see, like the guy, like I said, the guy that approached me to run a game that was in that Hamlet group I was in. He said that, well, when I play with my friends, we're all overpowered. It's basically a bunch of overpowered. They can fly. They can do this is like this big ridiculous thing. And I'm like, well, probably rein it in a bit. OP, overpowered. And for me, like I said, you lose realism. You lose that kind of cool feeling that I could die. For one, I think that's kind of a real cool thing. No matter how cool the story is and everything else is, you can still die. And
Yeah.
so I like to
I
rein it
must
in and bring realism in, but not where it's constraining and restrictive. You know.
I must say that you are really good at doing that. Like, because sometimes I'm like, wow, I'm so powerful. Like, sometimes you give me things and I'm like, and I'm like undefeatable. Like, I'm just so freaking cool, the best freaking warlock ever. We can't and then it's like, oh no, like he does stuff that is like, okay, no, I can still go. I can still definitely die. Like, if you know, and the one thing that does upset me is like people that are like, you can't fight Baphomet, you can't fight, you know, the Demigorgon. What are you thinking? It's just like, dude, that's why they're there. That's why they have stats. I mean, like, you can fight them if you're high enough level. Like,
Yeah.
it's not, you know, like, why else, you know, people really do get like I don't see how she could have like defeated, you know, her and her group could have defeated that. It's just like, dude, we're like 10 19 level characters like at the time when we killed Orcus. I mean, and we had a bunch of other people with us. Like
Gods.
we had like
One
demon
god.
lords on our side. I mean, like, it happened, you know. So it's just like,
Yeah.
you know, calm down. It's just like
She died when we got Dark Orcus.
that is true. I did die.
But they did defeat him. Actually, it's funny is that she was level 19 when we fought Orcus, and that fight leveled her. Somewhere in the middle of that battle, she leveled, and but she got killed anyway. But we just got lucky that there was somebody with that could bring her back later.
But yeah, it's just kind of. It is always like even now I'm like some of the stuff that's going on in our campaign now I'm like, am I gonna die? Like I swear some of this stuff. I mean,
and she has a lot of allies, and she has 9 group members, and
it's a weird place to be because you're practically like a demigod when you're like 26 level. Like, holy crap, you're powerful, like powerful, but you're not a god.
Not yet.
And if you're like your enemy's a god, it's just like,
yeah.
What
know,
the
all the
hell
old
am I?
gods. That's where we're at. The old gods. Go ahead.
Yeah, I haven't ever ventured into epic levels. I think the highest I've ever played was 12th level.
Wow. Yeah.
I'd love to play as a higher level character. As a dungeon master or game master, I'm kind of afraid to run an epic level campaign. It just seems like there's so much to consider as far as what player characters are capable of and what you can throw at them that's enough of a challenge for them. So I probably won't ever run a game that high level.
It is pretty epic. I mean, it's like, I know that James, we've had more than one, I mean, probably like 5 or something, like army battles, like battles with full-on armies. So it's like, it's like, you know, it's sort of, it's really fun, but it is also like, it's a lot more stressful in a way than just like lower level play. Like, there's a lot hinge pinning on you winning or losing. Like, the whole world basically is on you in a way. So it's just, it's a lot of pressure kind of, but it's fun. It's really fun. And if you're into that kind of thing, and I'm just like obsessed with my character, so I don't ever want to like say, okay, the campaign's over. No, I'm like, no, we can't say goodbye to my character. I like her too much. But yeah, so.
Yeah, I think storytelling would have to get pretty epic at that point too. Mm-hmm. So I think that would be more of a focus point, at least for me in my mind, as far as having an enjoyable game at those levels. I think you would have to have some kind of grand story to go along with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've noticed that most people don't like going beyond level 12, and or they don't like it, or they say it's not good, or DMs don't want to run it. I do think it has a lot to do with the DM if that's what if they want to do it. If they want to do it, and then if they're capable of doing it, I think it absolutely can be fun for people. But I do think that people have a mindset about it, you know, too. You know, for me, as my 2 things growing in high school were creative writing and math. So I wasn't really good at grammar, but creative writing, you know, I like to write stories. So like I said, when you take pour a ton of creative writing into the story and everything else, but then you're a pretty mathematical guy and say, well, I don't always know. I'm like, well, I don't know if she's going to survive this. You know, I don't know. I think there's tools online you can kind of get a sense of certain things, but I think that part of it is that I have mathematical instincts, but I also have story instincts. So I think for the most part, it's pretty balanced. But I don't know. For me, yeah, the thing is, I run a lot of characters in our group, and I'm attached to them, and I'm attached to her character, and she's attached to her character a lot. So it is a lot of work to make higher level stuff work. And like I said, we had a long period of demon lords and archdevils, but I've had to go beyond them because, you know, once you and your group have killed 5 or 6 of them, you need to start hurling something out at them that's more than just, you know, demon lords. And that's where I've now started to have the old gods return, because the old gods, in my thing, the old gods get their power from followers, and the old gods have been up in Olympus for so long or whatever, that the followers were not really praying to them anymore. And they're like, maybe they're losing the power, they're worried. So we want the material realm back. We hear about this warlock that's, you know, made peace, and she's made peace in the material plane, and she's now living in the abyss, but keeping an eye on the material plane. Now they want the material plane back because they used to, you know, be worshipped and all these things. So she's like, no. And she's like terrified because it's God, it's Ares, it's all these gods slowly. So she doesn't know what's going to happen when she goes up against these old gods. But old gods, in my world anyway, and stories too, their egos are their biggest weakness. They just think they cannot be beaten. They are entitled and all these things. These really are their weaknesses.
The thing though is that my character is like that too, like fully. Yeah. Like I'm not to the extent like of a god. She has an ego and she has an entitlement. Yeah. She definitely does. Yeah. Like I'm not. Character is a fault, and that is one of her faults. You know, she's true. She kind of has the same grown fault. into people not worshiping her, but, you know, like very much idolizing her because of what she's done. So it's like she definitely has an ego, you know, and she's very not. I don't know. It is like 12:40.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. You have some other things in your life that you need to do. It's true. You're one of those people in character, and we know you and we're friends with you, but also that we can talk forever. We've had this happen, and it's not necessarily on the final recordings, but we're like, you know, we could talk forever. Probably gonna have to have you back, you know. But
yeah, no, I think Mel and my son are going to be coming home shortly anyway, so it might be a good stopping point.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll have you on again, or maybe, who knows. But definitely going to be playing with you, whether you're DMing, I'm DMing, she's DMing. But I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time and sharing. I really want players and DMs, like I said, to have an opportunity to talk about. I just think I think Twitter's too two-dimensional. I think, you know, all of us are kind of like, we want to, and there's not as much conversation going on like there used to be, like I said. So it's like, I'm like, there's a part of me that I like to connect with the community, not just watch them tweet by what they're creating, or I try to talk about my games, but I don't get many people reacting that much. I feel like it's mostly people talking about their creations. So I'd like to get back to talking about games, talking about DMing, playing, and also creations beyond, hey, I did another module. Hey, I did another module. I'd like to, like, what was your process making it, or what was your inspiration, or when's it coming? It's like, so yeah, we'll probably put links to your Etsy and maybe to your Twitter if you'd like, underneath. This will be on YouTube, but yeah, if there's no other last thoughts or anything like that, we can definitely cut.
Just good luck editing this.
Yeah. No, this is a lot of fun. I think this is a really cool project, and I'm looking forward to seeing other people on here and seeing what they have to say and what they have to share. So yeah, this is a lot of fun.
Olive does too. Olive likes the project.
Yeah, that's the rating. Olive shoots the ratings.
Olive likes scritches and scratches, huh?
Scritches and scratches. Cool. Then I will see you in the Twitter. We'll be in touch for our next games and all that stuff. But I really appreciate it. Say hello to Mel, and
will do.
We'll go ahead and call it there. Thanks, Kate, for co-hosting, and she's actually a natural, I think. It's kind of not, because we're boyfriend girlfriend. It's a little awkward when we compliment each other. We're like, oh, people are just gonna think, yeah.
Well,
but no,
maybe
it's
to some
no, but it's
extent.
not like that. I promise. We just have an ad. It might be why we're dating because we like each other. And now I'm gonna probably edit all
Yeah,
this
that
out.
helps. That tends to help.
Yeah, we hate each other, but we're dating.
Yeah, too lazy to leave.
Yeah,
No,
we're
but
too. No.
but anyway, yeah. So for those watching, thanks for checking out episode 3. Looking forward to episode 4. No idea who the guests will be. I'm gonna run out of friends here. Gonna start pulling on people that I'm not friends with and see what happens. And no, but anyway, but I appreciate it, and also do message me if you'd like to maybe be on this at some point, because who knows, I might start pulling from that list at some point too. So, all right, so love each other. I think that's the littlest things right now.
All right.
All right.
Talk to you later. Take care, guys.
Yeah, bye.